let's have an easy one to start with. Strictly speaking, where does the phrase Chariots of Fire come from?
It's a film.
Where does it originate?
It's something to do with this.
Where does the phrase originate? It's a quotation.
Yeah, it's a quotation.
From what?
Shakespeare. Must be Shakespeare.
No.
And, those Chariots of
Well,
Fire.
Jerusalem, the hymn Jerusalem.
You fell finally into our
Finally!
trap.
Sorry, it's the
Slightly
first question.
embarrassing how long it took you to get the wrong answer. Yes. I did start by saying strictly speaking. Strictly speaking, it comes from a poem by William Blake called...
Chariots of Fire.
No. I'm ashamed of you. You must know the first line of...
I must, but I can't be asked to tell you.
And did
those feet in ancient times.
Thank you. Finally we got that.
Oh, I know that.
Yes. That's the name of the poem from which the line Chariots of Fire comes. The tune is called Jerusalem, and it's referred mistakenly as a hymn.
Thank you for starting in my key. Come on, England's
Come on!
Oh, clouds unfold. Yes, really what I'm after is, what does it mean?
What?
And whose feet?
Jesus, surely.
Right, so what is the story of Jesus coming to England?
Is there a film about it?
Yes.
And then
Not to my knowledge.
Well, then I'm in
The
trouble.
holy...
As they say, this is what people say now when they don't know the answer. They say, I'm out of my comfort zone.
You have been
Modern
the
euphemism.
equivalent of sitting on spikes for the last 10 years, Alan. Yet to discover your comfort zone. OK, listen, there is a legend that Jesus came to England and he was said to have gone to a particular place.
Was it
The
Glastonbury?
audience knows... Ah, thank you.
Glastonbury.
Glastonbury.
Yes.
Glastonbury tours. And he went with his uncle. What was his uncle's name?
Bob.
Uncle Bob Price.
Bob is your
Surely, they were more informal in those times, surely.
His uncle's name was the same as his father's name.
Joseph.
Joseph, and he was named after a place.
Is it like working with very slow children?
Thank you. Say it again so the camera can get it clearly.
Right. OK.
This is a new thing we're
hang on
doing.
a second. I was proposing my friend.
Joseph of Arimathea.
No, I said it. I said it. Joseph of Arimathea.
I'm going to throw cold water at you both in a minute. Yes.
Joseph of Arimathea.
Now.
Joseph of Arimathea.
It was the first ever Glastonbury Festival, if you will.
It was,
that
yes.
Jesus supposedly came with his uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, who is mentioned in the Gospels.
Right.
Although, it has to be said, Arimathea is only mentioned once, and that is in relation to the place Joseph came from. No one knows where it is, where it was, where it could have been. Anyway.
Could have been a falafel tent.
Is the present.
Oh, I'm not going to fall into that trap. Who's going to say it?
Well, it's not really a trap. It is a genuinely interesting question. I mean, there are different ways of trying to describe what the present might be, but let's talk about the present in terms of archaeology. Archaeologists actually have an acronym, BP, which means before present, and they can date the present. It's an exact date, January the 1st, 1950.
That's the present.
That, for archaeologists, and there's a very good reason for this, and you might be able to work it out. If you did, I'd be very impressed.
Is it plastics?
Not quite that.
Bakelite?
When archaeologists... No, archaeologists are interested in the distant past. And recently, in the last 100 or so years, certain techniques have enabled us to discover... I say us, I mean...
Carbon dating.
Carbon dating has allowed us to discover how old things are. Now, in the 1950s... Basically, they decided by January the 1st, 1950, we had so screwed up the atmosphere with nuclear testing that no carbon dating could be trusted after January the 1st, 1950. So that is known as the present.
See, these archaeologists need to learn a bit of physics, though. According to Einstein's theory of space and time, which is our best theory of space and time, there's no such thing as a present moment which spans the universe, or indeed even the Earth, or in fact even two people moving relative to each other.
It is absurd to think of an event that might be happening now in a galaxy and me doing this as being simultaneous. That has no meaning cosmically, does it?
Because you can swap the order of them, as long as they're not causally connected. I mean, we don't know how time works at a very fundamental level, actually.
But time's arrow. I mean, I actually got my head around that a bit.
Yeah.
Because you don't need maths. If you think that everything's going forward and as it does, it decays.
Yes.
So then you understand entropy.
Yes.
I just look, for instance, all you need is an analogy to make that's pertinent to you. So in my case, all relationships. And then you realise, of course, you've got that perfect 18 months, and then they're dead.
The second law of sexual dynamics.
Yes, that's how according to me, that's how I extrapolate.
To make it statistically significant, though, you have to have an awful lot of relationships.
Oh, I do. And they really do
That's
also
very well
have the
put.
law of entropy.
What's the French for innuendo?
Is it double entendre? No, I've just remembered that double entendre is French for big tits, isn't it?
The double entendre means nothing to a Frenchman. You could say double entente. Entente is like a...
Two-man tent.
No. Or double sens, double sense, but they don't say double entendre.
So it's a French phrase that the French don't use. So it's not French.
Exactly. And that's precisely what this round of questions is about. There are other examples of that. Suppose you're at a performance, someone is very brilliant, and you want them to perform again.
Encore.
You'd shout encore. What would they shout in France?
More.
Good thought. But encore is a French word meaning more, but they don't shout encore when they want. They shout a Latin word, which means twice.
Anyone?
Anyone in the audience? Bis, bis, B-I-S.
Beef.
Beef.
Bis, bis, yeah, that's what they shout.
That's crap.
Try encore.
You'd hate to do a show, wouldn't you? And at the end, everyone goes, beef! It's like that.
Well, there are other phrases which we use, which sound French, but again mean nothing to a Frenchman. Cause célèbre is not a French phrase. Like ensuite for a bathroom, the French wouldn't. They go, what?
Yeah. What about bidet?
Bidet they do indeed have, though it's easier really to do a handstand in the shower, to be honest. And if you want the expense of a bidet, yes.
Easier.
If you're as nimble as I am, yeah.
I'd pay good money to see that. I'd like to see you doing that with a camera going, tweet this.
The trouble is with the handstand in the shower, though. It's like, you know when you see a mountain stream and you think the water looks all right, but I don't know where it's been further on. When you're upside down and this water is pouring across your face, lodging in your nostrils, and you know that it's been...
That's a worry.
That's what puts... I had a friend who, he had read somewhere that if you slept upside down, it made you more intelligent because the blood went to your brain. Yeah. And I became obsessed with the idea that he would have a wet dream and die.
Oh, that's so, in so many ways, a horrific image. So, yes, there are words we use. Décolletage, for example, we use for that. The French has used décolleté for that, not décolletage.
Excuse me, when you say we, you mean you?
Well, it's not a common phrase, but...
No, it's not. No one's ever said, look at the décolletage on that.
Could you put...
You never stop learning. I've already learned how to say to my teenage sons, look at the knockers on that, without the mum getting annoyed.
And now you can say décolletage.
Décolletage, look
I
at
thought it too. Also, ensuite, which is used commonly these days for a bathroom that's connected to a bedroom. In France, they don't use the phrase ensuite.
And, of course, the ensuite.
Exactly. The French do not.
Commonly used.
There's a Greek phrase. The Greeks say katatraia staeftika, I think it is. and it means who gives a shit. But literally it means there is trouble in the gypsy village. It's true.
Depending on where up you are on the social calendar, it's right, isn't it? It's, you know, most people wouldn't give a shit if they...
Anyway, that's the point. You can ask a Frenchman for a double entendre if you like, but you'll be lucky if he gives you one. Now to some... Key part did bigots play in the Second World War?
Bigots? What do you mean?
Bigots.
You're talking of...
Not that kind of bigot,
that kind
actually.
of bigot.
We're being a diversionary tactic there.
That's a bit of a minor description.
Yes, I think it is, exactly. This word is bigot with a
Oh, he was a bigot, was he? Oh, the more I hear about it. Is that an acronym, though, for something?
Yes,
Bigot.
it's an acronym. B-I-G-O-T. No, it's British. Churchill chose it.
Oh, really? Beware.
Brown-eyed girls on toast.
One trouser.
Beware, I've got one trouser. Yes.
I'm getting out
Tomorrow.
Blimey! I've got...
It's gone off.
Owls! Turned...
Owls?
Owls.
He's so shit at I Spy, I can't tell you.
Bigot stands for British Invasion of German-occupied territory. So there's Monty, and there's Winnie, and they're looking at a map, as you can see, and they're planning D-Day.
Flannel over there.
D-Day.
OK, chaps.
Got your flannel?
Everybody want their flannel.
All flannelled up. Of course, Churchill was the only person who Monty would let smoke. Well, yes, it was so secret that anybody who knew any details of the Normandy landings, they were on the bigot list, and they were not allowed under any circumstances to leave the country. The only exception was Churchill himself, but no one on the bigot list was allowed out of Britain. And indeed, there was a rehearsal for the invasion in 1944, and 10 people on the bigot list were killed accidentally. And all plans for the invasion were put on hold until they could account for every single one of the bodies, just to be absolutely sure that the secret didn't get out.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not... I mean, yeah.
It's got out now, we know now.
Now, yes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't... It's not like it was unlikely it wasn't going to happen, was it? I mean, England's there, France is there...
I know, but we did everything we possibly could to persuade them that it was going to be further across towards Belgium, and indeed they withheld divisions further away from Normandy, where we landed. Precisely because Germany fell for some of the spies, the Zigzag Man and Zabo and that poor old chap who was a dead body who was dressed as if he was an important officer and dropped in the sea outside Gibraltar with a chained briefcase next to him with plans in it. And they gave him a whole life. It was called The Man Who Never Was. There's a film of it.
Who actually was he?
He was probably a very sad, down-and-out Welsh chap who died very young and been found sleeping rough somewhere, and they dressed him up smartly to look like an officer.
You wouldn't have to do that now. You just get someone from Big Brother or something. You know? They'll volunteer for it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's a surprise.
Certainly the rest of us would.
Yes, surprises. You're going to be killed. You're going to be a fake general. Oh, empty.
No, it is. It's a good film. Have you ever seen it coming around on Channel 4 one afternoon, sort of thing that pops up now and again?
Yes, I will.
It's funny to think when he was alive, he didn't know what a key part he'd play when he was dead.
I know. Operation Mincemeat, it was called.
Yeah. You can sign up to this service now when you're alive, which monitors your tweets and Facebook updates and things. And then when you're dead, it continues to tweet as you until an executor of the will who you've nominated tells it to stop. And while you're alive, you give it feedback as to how good it is. And I'm starting this business, and if anyone... No, it already exists.
Well, that's bizarre.
Yeah.
So you can set how long it goes on till?
Yeah, well, you give someone's name and you say, this person makes the decision as to when the virtual me dies. And then you give it feedback. So if it's slightly funnier than you are, you say, it's quite good, but bring it down a notch.
So people don't... So somebody employs to be you, then, after your death? Or it's not just you going, dead, 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 still dead, dead.
Yeah.
And then your followers go up, oh, he's dead, dead, oh,
You know, with one's contact list, when people die, I never have the heart to cut them out. So I have friends that have been dead 12, 15 years who are still in my address book, because I just...
Have they ever called?
They manifestly haven't called, and I haven't called them. But the act of just going delete seems so...
I've done the same thing, but the good thing is, if someone dead does call you, you'll know it's them.
Yes.
You'll know not to answer.
I know that I've been wrong all this time. I know not to answer, that's true. Well, of course, that number might be reused.
Oh, they do recycle them, yeah.
Yes.
So it is possible that
would
one
be
day...
the shock of one's life.
In fact, it's probable that one day that coincidence will happen. Someone who's got an old number of a dead person will accidentally ring a person who... God, I can't wait till that happens.
Time for a secret operation. What is the point of a tap in the ocean?
That's not a real picture.
It isn't a real picture, because in Britain you'd have 2 taps for no reason at all.
OK, I don't understand this. So you have a hot tap and you have a cold tap,
Yes.
right? Yes. Well, how's that? So you're trying to wash your hands,
Yes.
and what happens? You put it under the hot tap, you think, oh! And then you have the cold tap, oh! Yeah. How is it the British haven't discovered there's a mixer tap? What is it called?
We get.
Did you find that baffling when you arrived?
I still find it baffling.
Yeah,
and I don't understand radiators. Why you want to heat an entire house with a small, hot metal plate in the corner? It doesn't work.
What would you do instead?
We have forced air in Canada, otherwise you freeze to death.
What do you have a what?
Forced air, just the same as
a
aircon.
Forced aircon?
Yeah.
I've never heard the term. I'm 40, late 40s, and I don't... I genuinely didn't know how old I was. I'm not going to bother sitting here working out, but I'm 50 soon, and I've never heard the term forced air. Well, not in that context.
I love the fact... I love the fact, Rod, that I'm asking you some quite complicated science questions and you don't know how old you are.
I'm about 49.
You're about 49. Have you just worked it out?
Yeah. I'm so used to saying I'm 50 in a few years. I'm so used to saying that for a moment it's
No, the thing is, though, it is quite good to know how old you are. And the producer has just told me in my ear, Rod, that you're 48.
way to remember how old you are.
Yeah.
Is there like a little, some kind of song I can sing or something? Or...
I've never needed a mnemonic for my age. I can invent one. I'm going to come back to what's the point? What's the point? That's the question.
I've written one for you.
Yeah.
I've written one for you.
OK, here we go.
How about, like, what year are we in today? When my born, just take that away. You don't have to be a whiz. That's how old Rod Gilbert is.
I just followed your poetic guidelines. I'm 48.
At the risk of repetition, what is the point of a tap?
Is it so that when sea levels rise, you can turn it off? I don't know.
So it's not actually a water tap.
It's not a tap.
Rather
tap.
So what else could you tap? What's another kind of tapping that people do when they're trying to listen in?
There's a shark behind you.
Yeah. Is it a wire when they put a wire, transatlantic radio communication wire?
It's Cold War. It's called Operation Ivy Bells, and it took place from 1971 to 1981, and it was the USA wiretapping a Russian underseas cable. That thing, they're moving it into position there, is a giant tape recorder, and they just put it onto the wire. So the sailors on a submarine, the USS Halibut, located a Soviet cable. Halibut. They located a Russian cable off the Russian east coast, and they moved a 6-metre-long recording pod around it to track the communications. The thing I really like about it, because we're talking some years ago now, the device had to be updated every month, and so divers had to leave a submarine once a month and change the tapes. But it was hugely successful. It ran for a decade until a National Security Agency employee of the United States sold the information to the KGB.
Spying was a lot more hassle back then when you've got to train a team of divers, get submarines. Yeah. Now you just need somebody's maiden name and their first pet's name and you're off.
Yeah.
If you're Russians, you just have to go and see Donald Trump and ask him.
What quite interesting object is at the very end of the Earth?
Telford Town Centre.
Although I would argue about the interesting bit. At the bottom of Patagonia?
It's right down there, yes. It's the southern pole of inaccessibility.
Ooh, is it the off switch?
To stop it spinning.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's most unusual. It's a bust.
There's a bust?
There's a bust.
Oh, worth going, then.
Yeah. In the sense not of a pair of breasts, but in the sense of a sort of head and shoulders and front bit of a human being.
No, we didn't really think there was a big pair of tits.
It's of a living 20th century person, now dead.
A man.
Yeah.
Stalin.
Oh, the one before.
Lenin.
Vladimir Ilyich Lenin is there, right in the middle.
My
It's just
word.
bizarre. This southern pole of inaccessibility is more remote and hard to reach than the geographical South Pole. And in this very year, the destination was reached by a team of 4 Britons called Team N2I. Rory Sweet, Rupert Longston, Henry Cookson and Paul Landry. And we have one of this expedition in the audience. Mr...
Is it Lenin?
No. Mr. Rupert Longston is here. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't that bizarre? Phenomenal. Rupert, how far did you actually have to travel? Because there was no mechanical power, was it?
No mechanical power. We travelled 1,100 miles in total. Some of it was cross-country skiing and then kite skiing.
Was it cold?
When that picture was taken, I think it was minus 60 degrees Celsius.
What do you eat?
Food was
food.
fairly repetitive. It was chocolate, cheese, salami, pasta, lots of it. And one day towards the end, when we'd been eating the same thing for about 40 days, we played laxative roulette. And with one person had laxatives in their food, we didn't know who.
Well, I bet you did.
Not straight away. The consequences were quite obvious after a while.
Does it freeze as it comes
out?
Is it a shard of shit?
When did the Russians put that there?
1958.
Good Lord. Rupert Longston, congratulations on doing an extraordinary first and being very, very foolhardy and very brave and very brilliant.
Clearly not an extraordinary first. There was a statue there when they...
No, they went under their own power. No one had ever done that before. Congratulations. Thank you very much, Rupert. Thank you. That's amazing.
I like the idea of that, though, the idea of going and doing that with no mechanical device whatsoever. His moon mission's going to be amazing. Give me a man up a ladder going, oh, this is madness.
How would you use a Monopoly set to escape from a prison camp?
I could see how you might use a buckaroo.
Just fly out over the fence.
I mean, you'd probably just keep ending up on the barbed wire. Again, try it with the bucket.
Yeah, is it the covering up the hole with it?
Well...
Like in Shawshank?
No, there was a man whose nickname was Clutty Hutton, who in Britain bought up lots of Monopoly boards and turned them into escape kits that he then set up through MI9 with these pretend charities.
So that you'd get a get out of jail free card. That's a very good idea.
It was. No, what was brilliant was
the secret
that hidden in the Monopoly board were incredibly useful things.
Like a small dog, tiny hat, and a little ship.
There would be real money interspersed with the Monopoly money. There would be maps on silk, because they obviously tried it on paper. It's too bulky and rustly, but on silk, on parachute silk, you get an enormous amount of detail and tiny. That's an example of his earlier work, putting a compass in a military tunic button. The Germans got wise to this. They'd unscrew them, eat the buttons, and they'd see it. So then they reversed the thread. So when the Germans unscrewed it, they in fact tightened the button. Then they got wise to that. So then he used razor blades, which were magnetised at one end, so that when they were attached to something metal, they would spin round with the G of Gillette would point north, which was very good. So they were well disguised.
They said, now look, we put the normal thread on.
Yeah.
Old Kraut, he's unscrewing it. Then what we've done is we've put it the other way. So when he's unscrewing it, he's actually tightening it.
That's right.
Now we've gone a step further. We've done one here. You can't get the top off.
Isn't there a flaw in that, sir?
Don't complicate it. Don't complicate it, Perkins. No one's going to see this bloody compass, that's for sure. Give it a try. You won't get it off.
Oh, very good, sir.
In many ways, it's become what I call a button.
If I was the German camp commandant, I'd have made them all wear duffel coats.
If it was me, if I was in charge, I would have started shipping out giant Jengas.
Would you?
Well, then you just build them up. You know the Jengas you get in pub gardens?
Yes,
Just massive one, just hop over the fence.
Brilliant. If only you'd been in charge then.
Or snakes and ladders, but with actual ladders.
Yes.
And real snakes. Scare the Germans.
Scare the Germans.
Good British snakes who didn't like the look of a German soldier and would go up to them and go...
What about if they gave them toy tanks, but really big ones? And they could just turn around and go, take this, Jerry.
Who has the least use for Jeremy Clarkson? What two things come to mind when we think of Jeremy?
Top Gear and Brunel.
Cars and television is the key.
So it's a place that's got no...
A place that has almost no cars and no television would have very little use. Yes.
Sark.
Sark, you're quite right about traffic there, but it does have a lot of television. I mean, it has as much television as any other place.
Is it the Channel Island area?
It's not the Channel Island. It's a lot further away. Yes, but...
Bhutan.
Bhutan is the right answer. Well done. It is the kingdom. You've certainly got a point there.
Except... they have got television.
In 1999?
Yeah. It's where they're doing all the television surveys to find out, has television actually had an effect? It's completely wrecked the place. It's absolutely ruined it. It's gone from people going all day to just sitting around stabbing one another, wearing perfume and drinking Coca-Cola and wanting to be American.
And parking fees have now been introduced as well.
In
for the first
Bhutan?
time. It has no traffic lights in the whole of the kingdom.
Where is it?
It's sort of between China and India in the Himalayas.
India has no speed limits.
India has no speed limits.
And every car in India, within 5 years of it being bought, will be involved in a fatal road accident.
The UK, on the other hand, has the highest number of car thefts in the world.
My motorbike was stolen 2 weeks ago.
Bummer.
It's a black Suzuki DR60 N441 YKP.
You should do the whole police press conference bit and say, now this bike thief knows who he is.
I've got an American cousin who's a doctor, and he was visiting me in London at the time when I used to ride a motorbike, and he didn't know this, and we were meeting in a restaurant. He saw me checking in my skid lid, as we biker boys call them.
Helmet,
he said, "Oh, I didn't know you rode a bike." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, do you know what we call bike riders at the the trauma department of the Roosevelt Hospital?" I said, "No." He said, "Donors." And that was one thing. And then, literally 2 days later, a friend of mine was talking about her aunt, who was at Moorfields Eye Hospital, and she was going to have a cataract operation or a corneal graft or one of those sort of things. And a chap came in, the consultant, and said, "No, Mrs. Alton," he said, "I'm sure you've heard about it. We're going to cut out that nasty old lens, a cloudy old lens. We're going to sew in a nice, bright, fresh new one. It's a very simple operation. It only takes a few hours and you'll be out and you'll be seeing wonderfully." He said, "The only trouble is, I'm afraid, we don't have any donor eyes in at the moment." But he looked to the window and said, "But it's raining, so it shouldn't be too long." He meant it. Most people in Bhutan live more than a day's walk from a road. It's a very rural country indeed. Only 0.01% of the country are on the internet, for heaven's sake.
No, but if you got that from the internet, it'll be wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every single one of the 247 billion facts on the internet is wrong.
A question for you, Alan. We're both actors. Why are we so grotesquely overpaid?
Market forces. We're not in charge of the distribution of wealth.
Any excuse we can think of. Well, what profession within the film industry might think that they're responsible entirely for the way an actor conveys...
Screenwriters?
The screenwriter certainly has a lot, as far as the story is concerned, but they can't control, as it were, what an audience reads into an actor's eyes.
So the
cameraman? The editor.
In a way, the editor, yeah. And in 1919, when cinema was being born, there was a filmmaker called Lev Kuleshov, and he proposed putting together a film in which you saw an actor looking at things, and you noticed that the audience read into the actor different emotions according to what they're looking at.
So it's the idea that they're looking, you know, we think, oh, they're looking melancholy because they're looking at something.
Or they're looking hungry
because they're looking hungry. Yeah,
exactly.
But the actor's actually not changed.
It's exactly the same shot as the actor.
And this that's the trick of acting. All actors know that.
Yes, is not to act.
If in doubt, don't do anything at all.
And directors will tell you. Milos Forman famously shouts, "Stop acting! Somebody is acting here!"
There's a famous Bogart one, and at the end he looks down on some carnage, and everyone was very impressed.
by the emotions he portrayed, but the shot had been done much later, and the camera went down low, stood up on a balcony, and the director said, "Look bored."
Yes! And it works like that.
They cut it in.
It's extraordinary how that is. It's the effect, it's the timing of the story, it's what the actor seems to be looking at, and it's the audience that does the work. They read the emotion into the face. Oh, that's... We've actually cut our own together. So you can see here, what's this emotion?
Confusion.
Oh, he's looking hard at something. Can you believe it's true? Oh, no. Arsenal have lost again. What a beautiful bike.
There you are.
Proof positive as if it were needed. Anyway, thanks to the Kuleshov effect, good acting, maybe just good. Who first cracked the Enigma code? Yes.
Was it the Poles?
Top man! Absolutely right. You're a good soul. Yeah. There's a general feeling that we did all the work, but in fact it was a Pole in 1932, as early as that, who first cracked how an Enigma machine worked. But in the late 1930s, the Germans changed the way they worked, so that I think there was something like 364 billion possible settings each day to the daily code. Now, that's not something you could guess. But the first one to crack it in the beginning to see how it worked was a young Polish mathematician called Briain. And if you ever go to Bletchley Park, and I do urge you to do so, there is a splendid statue to him, and...
Have they got a good shop there?
They have a very nice shop. They also have a museum of computing, which I know would excite you almost...
Oh, indeed.
Indeed, I can...
Already moist.
I mean, it is well established. The work on Enigma did do a great deal to hasten the end of the war. Eisenhower estimated that it shortened the war by 2 years, which is hundreds of thousands of lives. So it was an extraordinarily important thing that these boffins got together. But how do you think they were first brought together at Bletchley Park? What was the first move the government made to assemble the boffins?
Singles club.
It was almost that. It was a telegraph crossword competition. Especially fiendish telegraph crossword. And the winners were sent letters saying, "You might be our kind of chap." But anyway, they then soon became aware that having people who knew that cart horse was an anagram of orchestra was not going to win them the war. They needed really great mathematical minds.
It's when the world changed, isn't it?
It's when the world changed.
It'll be fascinating conundrums that the Nazis will set us.
But
we'll have to find clues and follow them. No, you just need a supercomputer.
But fortunately, there was a man ready for it. It just happened to be that history had thrown up a quite brilliant mathematician called Alan Turing, who was at Cambridge at the time. There he is. He's considered the father of computing, one of the truly great men of his time. And you may remember Gordon Brown making an impassioned but far too late apology on behalf of the British government for his terrible death. He was persecuted for his homosexuality and chemically castrated and then committed suicide by eating a poisoned apple. And there are many to this day who believe that Apple computers named their apple with the bite out of it in honour of Alan Turing, the father of computing. And I was in a position to ask one of the founders, Steve Jobs, and he said it isn't true, but God, we wish it were. It's just a coincidence, but they're very proud that people think it might be, because he was a simply extraordinary man. But the real fiendish thing was not Enigma, it was called Lorentz. And for Lorentz was used between German High Command and Hitler himself, basically. And Lorentz was unbelievably difficult. And for that, Turing and his team built what really was the world's first computer. It was called Colossus. And it was way ahead of its time. It was quite extraordinary.
It was all a complete sort of national secret until very recently, wasn't it? Or quite recently.
Absolutely. There is Bletchley Park. And it is open to the public. I'm a big advocate for it, so I make no apology for banging its drum. It's a great place.
It's an interesting choice that we took as a nation, though, you know, during the Second World War, which was an expensive experience for us and left us bankrupt. But out of it, we had basically invented the computer, and we decided to make it a secret.
Yes.
Rather than, in any sense, attempting to monetize it.
Actually, we gave the secret of Colossus to the CIA.
Oh, superb.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
It was
an excellent move.
It was.
No one will be needing that.
But there's a great memo, because there are a lot of people in the British government who thought, what are these people in faintly damp tweed with pipes and glasses doing, writing on bits of paper here? And there's quite a big budget. I mean, what are they doing? And Churchill had a look round, and the fellow explained to him what they were doing, and then there's a very famous memo in Churchill's hand that just says, give them what they want. It's fantastic, that, isn't it?
What can I just ask, and you may not be able to answer this, but what was the nature of the Enigma code? Was it mathematical or was
Yes. I mean, don't ask me to give you the precise details. I'm really no expert. But it was a purely physical, mechanical device, but it had so many different rotors that had so many different angles and positions that there were hundreds of billions of permutations. It was our job was to intercept or work out what the code word of the day was, and then we could translate the messages. It was all very odd. But they were very lazy. It relied on Germans making mistakes by using the names of their dogs and things. So a lot of intelligence was gathered about the people in naval intelligence in particular, about what their dogs, their girlfriends, their addresses and things like that, because it's a bit like passwords, you know.
I'm beginning to think that people will be able to hack into my John Lewis account now.
Not named after your
It's
dog,
ironic.
surely.
They invented a computer and finished the war early, but the cyber war being waged by China will be the death of all of us.
Yeah, there is some... You know, the worry about it is... I mean, I was speaking to a man at Los Alamos, which is where they developed the nuclear bomb, and obviously the science now goes in other directions. They said they had something like 1 million attacks an hour on their sort of cyber front-end security. And I said, what, hackers? And they said, no, nations. Well, let's be honest, one nation. And I was interviewing him on camera, and I said, would it rhyme with Biner? And he said it might well do. And I said, that's how many times they're battering on the doors of your security.
Well, they
said,
must
oh,
do,
yeah.
They've got thousands of computers.
Absolutely, they're just slave...
Trying to work
Yeah.
it out
I know.
24 hours a day.
And presumably we're attempting in our own befuddled way to do the same.
If we've got a ZX80 on it 24
Except when Wimbledon's on.
Yeah, we've got a crow that can get a tiny bucket out of a Perspex tube. Take that, China.
If I could be serious for a moment, more than 100 million people were killed in wars during the 20th century, and the total number of people ever killed by wars could be as many as 1 billion. Einstein described war as a cloak that covers acts of murder, and Antoine de Saint-Exupéry called it a disease like typhus. With all that in mind, here is my question to you. Why did Hitler have such a silly moustache?
Thank God for that. I thought I was on the wrong show for a minute. Well, very serious.
I'm sure you'd agree with my description of war there, wouldn't you?
I
Sheila?
would absolutely. This is a difficult show for me to be on because I'm a Quaker pacifist. So I'm not an ideal person.
Were you born a Quaker?
No, I wasn't. I was a Quaker by convincement, as they call it.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And because my family, the Fry family, were very early Quakers.
Of course they
all
were.
the way.
Of course they were.
It's
yeah.
a very admirable thing, and the pacifism is taken very seriously, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's a lovely thing until Hitler comes along, and then it's not much use.
Well, if we'd have done something about it before Hitler came along, then maybe it would
shaved his moustache
And I
off.
think the reason he had that moustache is he was probably a fan of Oliver Hardy.
Ah, well, it's certainly true that they were popular in the 20s and increasingly in the 30s. Well, Charlie Chaplin,
Exactly.
of course, is best known. But supposedly Hitler changed from what was a relatively bushy moustache. You may have seen a famous photograph of him as a Gefreiter, a corporal in the First World War. There he is on the left. But there are a couple of stories. No one's quite sure which is true. There was a fellow who served with him, Alexander Moritz Fry, great-uncle Alexander. He was in the same regiment in the First World War as Hitler, and he said that Hitler trimmed it into the familiar toothbrush in order to fit into the gas mask properly.
Oh.
Fry's account is controversial, apparently. He went on to become a satirist and fantasy novelist, starting a family tradition.
Here's the point about Hitler. He's judged very harshly by history, but he did kill Hitler.
I can't take that away from you, Jimmy.
Credit
It's a
when
true
credit
fact.
is due.
That's true. Some historians believe that Hitler only adopted the tash in 1919, and his sister-in-law, who lived in Liverpool...
She had one as well.
Do you know what her name was?
Muriel.
almost, as it were.
Gauss Adolf.
Bridget Hitler.
Bridget Hitler.
Yeah, that was her name. Bridget Hitler.
Bridget Hitler?
Yeah. Yes, she was married to Alois Jr., who was Hitler's half-brother. And they had a son, William Patrick Hitler.
Billy Hitler.
William Patrick Hitler went to America and won a Purple Heart in the Navy.
Changed his name, I presume.
Eventually to Stuart Houston, I think. And he claimed he wanted to forget anything to do with his uncle, but he named his first son Alexander Adolf Stuart Houston. Anyway, yes, Bridget, in her memoir, said that he came to visit Liverpool and that she told him that he should trim the ends of his moustache to make it less bushy. But, as she put it, as in most things, he went too far. Put him in his place by some terrible, terrible concatenation of circumstances. Both my co-pilot and I on this flight were suddenly taken ill. How would you land this plane?
Can't they just land themselves on an instruments landing?
Can't you? I'd stop reading the Kindle on the steering wheel. And
That would be a wise start, yes.
Don't you radio... There's the co-pilot slumped, normally.
Yes.
In these situations.
Yeah, someone talks you in.
And somebody talks you in?
That's what happens in the movies, definitely, isn't it?
Yes. Like Robert Duvall probably would be good. That's who I'd ring.
Well, Lloyd Bridges, in the case of Airplane, the movie.
Perfect choice.
Yeah.
presumably there are legal problems with someone talking you down, though, because you could then subsequently sue if it was interpreted by your relatives that you were given bad advice. So probably these days the air traffic controller would refuse to give advice and would say, "I'm sorry, we're not covered for my saying."
That's right. You'd have to sign a waiver and sort of text it to them, and then they would insurance would cover you to be talked down.
It is a minefield. Extraordinarily and happily, it has never occurred in commercial airline travel history that someone has been, as it were, oh gosh, can anyone fly this plane because the pilot and co-pilot are ill or dead. It's never actually happened, but it would be fraught with difficulty. They have tried various simulations. For example, those with American civil private pilot licenses in America who can fly light planes were invited onto simulators of big jets.
Yeah.
And one of them couldn't even operate the seat that moved him towards the control. Another one turned the radio off. Another one turned off the autopilot and instantly crashed the plane. So the fact is, it's incredibly difficult.
Stephen, am I allowed to say that in your uniform how incredibly unlike a pilot you look?
So what do I look like instead? Be brutal, be frank.
No, I think you'd be the chap who calls himself the bursar. Who comes round, he's got a big leather wallet and takes money for duty-free.
Yeah, calls himself the
Yeah.
bursar.
Yes.
He calls himself the bursar?
Yes, I think he does, yeah.
Or the purser.
The purser.
The bursar is like the one that does the money for a...
Public school.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
What a very... What kind of planes are you flying on?
Yeah.
Yes, the bursar will be collecting money for the end of term jamboree.
Here on a Charterhouse Air.
Yeah.
The bursar with the trolley, and then with the drinks, the groundsman.
Anyway, the fact is it's fraught with difficulty. The first problem you would have is simply getting into the cockpit, because since 9/11, of course, cockpits are locked. And if the pilot and the co-pilot were truly too ill to be able to fly, they may well be too ill even to let you in to the cockpit. But
Do they have a secret knock? When they go and give them their lunch, though, surely they have to get in.
Yes.
So they must have a coded knock or something, like, it's me. I've got your lunch. Something like that, and they go, oh, must be the lunch.
It must be, it must be delivery with the lunch. The lunch is. Now, why do I say lunch is?
Because there's more than one.
But why is there more? You are accruing points at a fantastic rate.
God, I tell you what.
Yes, there are more than one. But why would there be more than one lunch? Why would
they have to eat different meals.
Yes, the pilot and the co-pilot must eat different meals.
Oh, in case one of them gets botulism.
Exactly, so that if one is by accident poisoned or whatever. And in the case of extra long-haul flights, there are 3 pilots, not 2.
So you can't get into the cockpit. It's very, very dangerous. Never been done.
Yeah,
So...
and if it was on autopilot, you'd be able, obviously, to fly level and it would continue. But once you got into the landing situation, yes, the kind of film scenario would take over, whereby you would be told how to operate the flaps and at what speed. But there are so many variables in terms of glide path and vertical and horizontal axes and so on. This really is extraordinarily difficult. There is an auto-land system.
There's no way of flying it remotely, then, from the ground? Like with just somebody with a Wii or something, you know?
I don't know. Maybe one day.
Someone comes in the room.
What?
It's a horrifying thought, but fortunately, as I say, it never has yet happened in major commercial
What conclusion did the great biologist Stephen Jay Gould draw from a lifetime study of fish?
Oh.
Yeah.
They haven't got any legs.
Is that his lifetime study?
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't his lifetime study of a fish.
Yeah. After a while, they smell.
He's a bit thick, and he just stared at me, and they haven't got any legs.
Starfish don't have brains. It's the kind of Louis Walsh of the aquatic world. They really don't have brains, they're starfish.
And they're not really fish, are they, starfish, to be honest?
Well, the word fish is in there, which kind of qualifies them, I think.
Well, is a starfish a fish? Is a jellyfish a fish?
Well, yeah,
cuttlefish a fish?
Yes,
is
but the starfish...
A crayfish is a lobster.
There's a division, isn't there, in the world, whether it should be down to sort of experts in biology, whether things are fish, or whether it should be down to menus.
Yes.
Certainly, for example, a crayfish comes under fish in a menu.
He looks like he's reading the sell-by date on that.
He does. Stephen Jay Gould was very great. He's dead now. He's very great. He won a Nobel Prize. He was a paleontologist and an extraordinary biologist. And he came to a conclusion which is...
They can feel no love.
No, that they... that there is no such thing as a fish. A fish has no biological meaning. There is just...
Well, I'm absolutely right. Go with menus.
On a menu it does. But in a menu, a fish is not the same as shellfish or seafood, is it?
It often comes in the same bit and separate from pudding.
Things that live in the sea.
Fish and a pudding are different.
How can something not be something? Something can't be not something, can it? But if you've created a something, then something has to be that something, otherwise you haven't created a something. So it has to be a fish if there is the idea of a fish in the first place.
I swear there's a philosophy somewhere.
Slow down, Plato.
There's some sort of ontological argument going there, and of course, to us, that we use the word fish. But biologically speaking, a salmon is more related to, say, a camel than it is to a hagfish. Like, there are lots of things that fly, like a bumblebee flies, a vulture flies, and there are flying lizards. They're not all birds.
No.
But we call things that swim in the sea fish, and actually, biologically, evolutionarily, they have absolutely nothing to do with each other at all. So, after a lifetime study of fish, biologist Stephen Jay Gould concluded that there's no such thing as a fish.
Have you read 1984? Hands up if you read 1984. Wow, that's pretty good. How many... Yeah. The fact is, research on several occasions show that at least a quarter of the people who claim to have read 1984 are lying. So I'm afraid we have to take points away from you. Yeah. Can you put your hand up if you said you'd read it, but actually secretly you haven't?
Oh, come on.
Come on.
You look very secret.
Yes. The honest man in the back has earned some more the audience. I have to confess here, I studied English at university. I haven't read it.
I should hope not. I wonder if an English degree would include something written as late as 1950.
Well, that's true. Yes, we read things written in 1370. But I kind of felt I didn't need to, which is an appalling thing to say.
Oh, it's terribly good, Stephen.
Well, I kind of... I
Look at
know...
all the TV shows named after it.
Two, at least. Room 101 and Big Brother.
Oh, that's Room mine.
Oh, sorry! I know how it opens. It opens with the clock striking 13. I know the character's
Really
called
good,
Winston.
and they made a film of it with John Hurt.
Yeah.
It's hard to bother, isn't it, when there's a great film of a book? I was the same with A Muppet Christmas Carol. I feel it's been done.
Why would
I
you
know
bother?
what the turkey does in the story. Why read it?
It is a masterpiece of a film, it has to be said.
I lie a lot to impress people. And I'll be honest now, I have never read The Hungry Caterpillar. It gets so close to the end, and I get too emotional. I'm like, he's gonna die. He's overfed himself. I can't do it, and I stop. So I just pretend that I've read it.
No, he
I don't know
becomes a
what happens.
butterfly.
Is he carries himself?
Spoiler!
So sorry, that was wrong of me. Oh. I knew someone who gave away the end of Psycho. It's nearly as serious as that.
Oh, my God.
There are some books that you don't need to bother reading, like good books that you don't need to bother reading. Like, it's controversial to say it, but I didn't think Harry Potter was worth reading. It is so expertly narrated on the audiobook. No, but I do. After I listened to the Harry Potter books, with you narrating them, everything in my life is narrated by Stephen Fry. All my thoughts, my internal monologue is now Stephen Fry's voice. Even the dirty thoughts are Stephen's voice. No, because it makes it acceptable. I had a sexual thought the other day. I put my hand in the air. I had a sexual thought about Camilla Parker Bowles. It didn't seem weird because Stephen was saying it to me.
What kind of animal can you eat without killing it? Rich.
Crabs, unintentionally. In the South.
Yeah?
In the deep South, in the bayou. On the bayou. Yeah, yeah. Freshwater mussels, they just pick them right out of the water, and they'll have these tiny pink crabs crawling on them, and they're considered a delicacy. And they're alive. They're alive when you swallow them.
These are things you can eat fully, an animal food stuff, but you don't kill the animal.
So something that sort of comes through like sweet corn, except it's still running around.
Oh!
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying it passes through the entire
unharmed.
digestive system.
Right,
no.
oh, right.
No.
But it stays in you and sets up a community.
Whatever they put in Yakult.
They which on about that, don't they? Yes, bifidus digestivum.
How?
Or L. Casei
How
immunitas.
stupid do they think we are?
David, you know these things. I'm so
that's
impressed.
I spend a lot of time watching television, and listening to the new made-up science is very entertaining.
I love the made-up science where they go, do you want to buy a tiny pot of off milk?
Yes! And they say it's always such a good deal. Just try it for 9 weeks. And then if you don't feel better, then give up. Because actually, if everyone tries it for 9 weeks, we're in the money.
No, because, I mean, actually, in a sense, you're probably right about bacteria, which would possibly pass through us and all the way and not be killed. But this is actually a delicacy. I'm inclined to give the point to Rich, because he's sort of accidentally right, only he's sort of wrong as well.
It's not a story of my life.
It's one of the most popular foods, almost the national dish in some ways, of Florida.
Tapeworm.
Not tapeworm. No, it's a type of crab. It's a stone crab.
Oh, right.
Stone crab claws are very popular. There is a stone crab, and the fishermen catch the crab, they snap off the claws and throw the crab back in, and it takes about a year for its claws to grow back. But it is considered a great delicacy, usually served with a sort of butter and mustard sauce, very popular indeed in restaurants up and down America, but particularly, as I say, in Florida.
What does it do for a year, then, armless down, wandering about?
I mean, it's up to himself.
So the crab is dismayed when it loses its claws, thinking, now I can't get any work done. All that stuff, I'm trying to rearrange the seabed. It'll be a year before I can do any of that. I'm just going to have to lay up. It's almost like they're sort of fruit-bearing animals, aren't they?
That's pretty similar to that, exactly.
Yeah.
Like an apple tree has its apples taken off, but next year it grows more apples.
So maybe they're trees. They're just seafoody trees.
Yeah,
they can walk around.
Same DNA.
You could have given me as an answer as well. There are certain tribesmen in the Masai Mara in northern Tanzania and Kenya who will drink the blood of cattle. You know, not kill them, but sort of slit the throat a bit and drink the blood, mix it with milk, actually. And then they bind up the wound again, and so they don't kill the cow. But that practice is dying out a bit.
They mix it with milk, so they think that cattle have 2 drinks. You can have one or the other, or a mixture of the 2. Fantastic, these 2-drink animals.
Anyway, stone crabs it is. They're returned to the sea alive, and their claws have been taken off. Over the next year, they grow a replacement, although it's never quite as good as the first one.
What is the most mysterious thing you do in bed?
You regrow, you regenerate your body parts, don't you?
OK,
At
but...
night. That's what I call it, anyway. What are you doing in there? I'm regenerating!
Do you mean that there are bits that are broken? You mend them, is that what you mean?
Don't you grow a new liver every 7 years or something? There's no bit of you that is actually the age that you are.
No, I think it's every 10 years you're a totally new person.
You're totally new, bones,
Yes,
everything.
No, you don't grow gums back. Gums recede and they don't come back. You can't go, oh, I think I'm going to grow my gums long this year.
It's probably quite good that the gums don't keep growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
Imagine having to get them trimmed.
That's going to be an extremely bloody...
What do you do for a living? I'm a gum dresser.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to get head to toe in plastic. It's like CSI when someone comes in for a long overdue gum trimming.
You have to show them the back of their gums.
Yeah.
So the most thing that we do in bed, all of us...
Dreaming.
Breathing.
It's sleeping. We have no idea. It is the most mysterious thing that we do in bed because we just don't know why we do it. Why would you end the day unconscious and basically paralysed and leave yourself available to attack by predators unless there is some fantastic evolutionary benefit that outweighs the risk? And the fact is, we just don't know. People have thought it was to do with energy conservation.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous because you actually don't save much energy.
Really?
No, not when you sleep, no.
How many days can you go without sleep for before you die?
If you stay awake for 17 hours, it's the same as having 2 glasses of wine in terms of how it would affect your performance.
Red wine or white wine? Because if it's white wine, then I'll just start crying.
Oh, would you? Oh, you're bad drunk.
Yeah, I'd never once drunk more than 2 glasses of white wine and not use the phrase, "Why don't you just dump me, Ben?"
Even to people who you're not in a relationship with.
No, you save about 110 calories each night, so a 2-finger Kit Kat is 107. It's not a lot, is it?
But that's the only energy saving.
That's the only energy saving.
So when you wake up in the morning, you can have a 2-fingered Kit Kat?
Help yourself.
Gratis.
Yeah, it totally wipes it all out, frankly.
It's a classy breakfast.
Morning, everyone. So the theory that I like best, there have been some scientists at the University of Rochester Medical Center in New York, and they think it's when our brains are cleaned. There's a professor, Maiken Nithergork, and she says you can think of it like having a house party. You can either entertain the guests or clean up the house, but you can't really do both at the same time. That's the theory. But how much you sleep depends on your own circadian rhythm. So I didn't sleep very much. Anybody here a good sleeper?
I've got a 5-month-old baby, so I only sleep in hour-and-a-half chunks at the moment.
So if you just come for a break just tonight...
This is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Are you a good sleeper now? Do you sleep well?
Yeah, I can sleep a lot, yeah.
Apparently what you should do to find out how much you need to sleep is you should spend a week not having an alarm clock at all, and you should let your body just wake up when it needs to and log how many hours, and if you need 6 hours and you need to get up at 7 a.m, then you know what time you've got to go to bed.
But Sandy, you need a wee at 5.
Yes.
No matter what.
Yeah, it's very annoying. And it's not like you particularly have that much wee to do.
You get there and you think, why have you woken me up for that? I would rather have just left that in the bed. We could have just done it in the morning.
Also, sometimes, in the middle of the night wee, you can start thinking about something stressful or get frightened by noises in the house.
There are so many great men short.
Are they really?
David, you've hit the nail on the head. Rem acu tetigisti, as they would say in Latin.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah.
It means nice one, son.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. In fact, Napoleon,
Napoleon was short, wasn't he?
No, he was above average height.
Everyone was short in those days.
Wasn't he?
Well,
he was 5'6", which is taller than
he was
is
5'7",
now.
actually.
Yeah.
Average height was about 5'6"-ish.
So it's just the British who decided he was short, put him down a bit.
Yes, it was particularly a cartoonist called Gilray. When we were at war with Napoleon, there was a famous one of George III with a little Napoleon based on Gulliver's Travels, like that. And he's actually saying, I cannot but conclude you to be one of the most pernicious little odious reptiles that nature ever suffered to crawl upon the surface of the earth. There.
It's a snappy.
It's a snappy one. He was 3 inches taller than Nelson, for example. Nelson was 3 inches shorter than Napoleon. It's certainly true that...
Nelson was 5'4"?
Yeah.
Like Danny DeVito?
He was very, short chap.
No wonder they put him on such a big
So
column.
is that kind of...
Yes, he's tall into Trafalgar Square.
Is that short man syndrome a kind of retrospective thing, then, that we've kind of invented more recently and then just gone back and said they're all short?
Yeah. Some of them were short, though. There's no question. I mean, Stalin was surprisingly short. He was only 5'5". Mussolini was 5'6". Franco was 5'4".
5'4"?
Yeah.
They are all short, Steve.
Well, no. He hit the 5'8". Idi Amin was 6'4".
Yeah, big
That's
fella.
my height. Fidel Castro, 6'1". Mao was 5'9", which is rather tall for a Chinese person.
So... But mostly they're not judged on their height, are they?
No, they're not. They're not. But all I'm...
We'll let that go.
Yeah. All I'm saying, you know, seems to be historically no evidence that short people are more power-hungry, more tyrannical than people of average or tall stature.
Because you know why it came about, though, because it's just that one... It's probably the one thing that short people have got to cling on to. One day, they might be a dictator. Well, and we've just taken that away from them.
All this,
one little hope.
All this not being able to reach things from shells, one day will be made up for when I kill millions of people. And I can stand on their bodies.
Yeah.
Reach the jam.
Everybody knows somebody short in their life who's been particularly angry and abused his position of authority, and then you decide he's a bit like Hitler.
That's the point. You notice when a short man has a tantrum
Yeah.
and says, oh, short man, Napoleon complex.
Tall man has a tantrum, you just leg it.
Exactly. I have to say I'm rather shocked by this. Heightism does exist. Short people are paid less on average than tall people. The disparity is comparable in magnitude to race and gender. A survey of Fortune 500 companies...
They should rise up.
Yeah. Hey. The chief executive officers of Fortune 500 companies, 90% are above average height, which is astounding, really. And 30% of those are over 6'2". You know, the tallest 4%.
Every now and again, a little short fella breaks through.
Yeah. Oh, stop.
Escapes, gets away.
Yeah, yeah. But it is... It is rather shocking that there is this disparity. And, of course, we always notice the powerful, short, rich man with a young, tall wife is...
Billionaire Bernie
She's
Ecclestone.
actually... I've seen her with him. She's actually much taller than that, above him.
Yeah, she's bending her knee there.
Yeah. I mean, he has to jump up to slap her on the bum. He could run through her legs.
And who's the couple on the left?
That's Carla Bruni and...
Sarkozy.
But at least the women have both got handbags that their husbands can fit in, which
No, there isn't really any evidence that dictators are shorter than the rest of us. Now, which popular game traditionally ends with all the players being thrown into a lake of fiery sulphur?
Well, I hope it's show jumping. I hate show jumping. Oh, God. I'd have one of those after every jump.
Before and after every jump.
It's not show jumping, though. It would certainly liven it up.
It sounds biblical.
I don't think it's the humans, though. It's pieces. Wouldn't it be pieces?
Well, I'll tell you that it's a game that went dramatically out of fashion in 1972. Early 72, it was more popular than Monopoly. But by the end of 72, it had almost completely gone out of fashion because of a film.
Mousetrap. Mousetrap.
No, there is no film of
Because of a
Mousetrap.
film. Is it Drafts? Remember that film? Drafts.
The film's true.
The truth about drafts.
No.
Drafts makes you go bald. Don't play drafts.
The film is not a game. There's a game in it. This game is played in it, and it's scary.
Oh, is it a séance?
Yeah, it is a séance using a Ouija board.
OK. Right.
And what film has there a Ouija board?
The
Exorcist is the right answer. One of the truly great films of the 20th century.
Is a Ouija board really a game? I don't remember ever seeing Ouija board scenes in a film and at the end going, right, who won?
Not dead. Well, the odd thing about Ouija, it was a board, it still belongs to Parker Brothers.
It's out.
Yeah. Ouija is a proprietary name, it's a trademark.
Is it we-ya?
Interesting point. That is some people's theory of the name of it is, yes, two words for yes, we, the French, and ya, the German, but no one's quite sure about where the name came from, except that it's a game that was invented. The board was invented and it was sold and people played it. I mean, it's weird to say that, but they enjoyed the fact that it nearly always works in as much as, you know, people spell out words and they don't quite know how they're doing it. It's clearly not dead people.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was not originally supposed to be dead people. It was supposed to be that you contacted yourselves, a part of yourselves that automatically wrote. It was not about seances.
Dead people just joined in. This is good. This is the one for us.
Even when recently asked, only a third of the people who still use Ouija boards say they do it to contact dead people. And in the First World War, it was used to contact your troops abroad, supposedly.
So, hold on. Are some dead people trying to communicate with the living through Monopoly?
Yeah. There was a court case in the 90s, I'm sorry to say, in Britain, a murder case, quite an important one, and the jury had to be dismissed because in their hotel overnight they used a Ouija board to try and contact the murdered person. And apparently the murdered person said, the guy in the dock is guilty, convict him. And said, but the judge heard about it and dismissed the jury, quite rightly, you may say. But the awful thing was, if they'd done it in the jury room, the judge couldn't have dismissed them. Because the judge has no right in law to know what goes on in a jury room. The deliberations must be private.
Unless he's dead.
Yeah, that's really complicated.
Was the guy guilty?
Unfortunately, he was retried and found guilty, which sort of is really irritating. So maybe the ghost of the murdered person did.
Where's the competitive element?
Suppose you just have a go.
Yeah.
Who are you trying to contact? Right, it's your turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you contact two dead people and then they box.
And then they tell you how it went.
Ghost boxing. Ghost boxing. Like Sky Sports do. Live ghost boxing from Auntie Vera's parlour.
See people in sheets.
Yeah. The headless man, he's already down.
It's just going like that. It's trying to punch you.
Do you know there's an Elvis...
Yeah. There we go. Go on. Hit me. Hit me.
There's an Elvis seance website.
Of course there is. I bet there's more than one of those.
Yeah. Where you contact Elvis.
Online?
But it cautions, if you wish to repeat this experiment, please be considerate. Many people may wish to contact Elvis, and we're sure he's quite busy. Please treat this information...
For eternity.
Yes, please treat this information the same as you would if he were alive and you had his email address, with respect. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? A sort of posthumous Twitter and things like that. That would be hell, I have to say.
You just thought of that.
Yeah.
Urine it up to your neck.
Oh, God. Horrifying. But the reference in the Bible to the fiery lake or whatever is from Revelations, where it does say those who practice the magic arts will be cast into burning sulphur. So,
How about balloon animals?
Ooh, the punishment for people who do balloon animals is not specified in Revelation.
You're off.
I think it's loneliness, the punishment for them.
Yeah.
I think it's long nights, sitting alone.
So, yeah, in my youth, games which conjured up the spirits of the dead were a popular gift for children. It's a weird thought. If they didn't like it, they could go to hell. When did slavery become a criminal offence in England? It was not in the 19th
one of these odd little new Labour laws in about 1996, 7, 8.
What an odd law to outlaw slavery. Is political correctness gone mad?
I only mean odd in the sense that it's a bit late.
Yes, that's exactly right. It was 1807 when the slave trade was ended, and then finally in 1834 it was illegal anywhere in the British Empire to own a slave. It has never been illegal to have a slave in England until April 2010. I'm saying I could have had you as a slave legally.
You mean this series I'm finally free?
Yes!
But you know what? I mean, one of those slaves who just goes back to the master. I don't know what to do. I work for you anyway, please.
I'll tell you one thing is that there are now estimated to be 27 million people held in, essentially in bondage, in slavery on this planet.
But the show will be over soon, you can go.
Yeah.
Right now?
More than there ever were in the days of cotton picking and so on.
27 million?
27 million.
In the world?
Yeah, that is the estimate. It's pretty grim problem still, slavery. The point is, it was never illegal in England because it was never recognised as a state of being.
Oh, there's all kinds of... I wish I'd known that.
There were laws against kidnapping and abduction and false imprisonment and sexual trafficking and all the other things that we might associate with slavery. But it was not illegal for one human to own another human, which it now is.
So this is a law this isn't one of those laws where they thought, oh, that needs clearing up. It's a loose end from history.
It kind of was. In 1967, there were a number of obsolete crimes that were taken care of. Barratry had been illegal right up to 1967, which is vexatious lawsuits.
Oh,
Barracks.
Building of
vexatious.
Yeah, what they call a vexatious litigant. Somebody just keeps...
Dorothy Squires.
Yes.
Dorothy Squires, the singer Dorothy Squires, towards the end of her life, when she did have a mania, but she was probably the last person to be done for vexatious litigants.
And if you kept prosecuting someone for it, you'd be prosecuting them.
Yourself?
Yeah, well, it's completely... Anyway, there's scolding. Scolding was a crime in 1966, but not in 1967.
With hot water, you mean?
No, not scalding. Scalding. Scalding!
That was a crime.
You! What time of the night do you call this, Eddie? Izzard?
12.
Yes.
12:30 or
Well, they give you a good scolding.
And that was illegal?
That was illegal.
Illegal?
Yeah.
And that was legal?
Eavesdropping was illegal. Challenging someone to a fight was also illegal until 1967.
What about going round and round and round about more than 3 times?
It certainly wouldn't have been a medieval law, would it?
Well, I don't know. And if you're in a horse and cart, you have a couple of hours spare.
On a medieval roundabout.
On a medieval roundabout.
Yes. Anyway, there you are. Due to a quirk of English law, it only became a criminal offence to keep a slave in the year 2010. So
There are lots of words called orphaned negatives. So these are words that have the opposites, but nobody uses them. They're now obsolete. So what would be the opposite of ineffable?
Effable.
Effable, but nobody ever uses as a perfectly good word, isn't
I've
it?
heard people say that.
Effable, it's not effable?
Oh, he's got nice trousers on today. He's totally effable.
Yeah, well, funny, and thank you. I really appreciate it. They're very roomy.
No, there are lots of good ones. Incessant. So cessant. Nobody talks about cessant anymore. Well, this is the weird thing about this word, OK? What it tells you in the dictionary is that cessant hasn't been used since 1701. What happened that year? They thought, you know, I'm done with that word.
What about, for you, what about disdain?
Oh, yes,
Because
the opposite
you're-
of being a good Dane. Yes,
Yeah.
a disdain.
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 Yeah. Nocent? Anybody?
Yesn't.
Innocent.
Innocent. So innocent, yeah, innocent was a criminal.
Innocent.
Until about the 17th century, so nocentum, Latin meaning to harm.
Is nonchalant?
So chalant.
Chalant.
Yes. I'm going to refer to you as chalant. I like that. I think that sounds rather good. Yeah, chalant and effable.
Stop it, you.
To be fair, Jimmy, I had to have it pointed out to me. Inflammable?
Oh, I hate inflammable and flammable.
Same thing.
It is exactly the same thing. It's not an orphan negative at all. In fact, the opposite of flammable is non-flammable.
Explosive.
I beg your pardon?
Just reading.
Oh, explosive. It used to be inflammable because it comes from the Latin inflammare, but they adopted flammable deliberately in the 20th century because, honestly, inflammable seemed ambiguous. So that is one of the reasons why we now say flammable and then non-flammable.
Right.
Anybody know what a contronym is?
Oh, so it's like, so got synonym?
Yeah.
Antonym.
Antonyms, yes. So it's a word that is also its own opposite. So screen, which means to show, like screen a film, and screen also means to hide. Another example, bound, so fastened to the spot and also heading somewhere.
Oh, that's good.
They're good, aren't they? Constance? They're really,
Nice.
see, you like this? Fast, so moving quickly, and stuck and unable to move. It's the.
And also, I always thought with fast food, the fast is not to eat, and then also to eat loads really cheaply.
Yeah, there you go.
I think we may need marijuana for this.
Yeah.
It seems to me like there should be a conversation that happens at like, yeah, man, fast.
Yeah.
But no, man, fast food.
I love that your impression of someone on drugs means you've never taken them.
Antigrams. Anybody know what an antigram is?
It is the opposite of a gram.
So these are words where if you do an anagram, the anagram itself has the opposite meaning to the original word. So
Impossible.
Yeah, dormitories. Tidier rooms is one. There's one. Customers, I like this one. The anagram is store scum.
There's a few people out there working retail.
Here's another one, an antigram. A volunteer fireman. I never run to a flame. And 45 is an anagram of over 50. It's just a woman lying, basically. Let's try a parlour game to get us started. One Victorian parlour game was called Taboo. You were asked a question and had to answer without using a taboo letter of the alphabet. Our taboo letter tonight is obviously N, so please answer the following questions without using the letter N. Matt, name a tasty yellow fruit grown mostly in the Caribbean and Central America. In the Philippines, its name has been corrupted to bayabas.
Is it, a ba'a? I'm trying to think what's nice and yellow. Crisps. I'm going for crisps.
Is it tasty yellow fruit?
Yeah.
So, no, the answer is guava.
Oh.
Is the answer we were
Oh, there is an
looking for.
answer.
There is an answer.
I've been playing this game wrong for years.
It isn't banana at all. The answer is guava, is the fruit that we were looking for. In the Philippines, it has been corrupted to bayabas. Do you know what the Filipinos call bananas?
No.
They call them bananas. I could have got you with that one, had you fallen for it. Susan, what do you call a woman who looked after Victorian children whose mothers were social equals but couldn't be asked to do the job themselves?
Well, I would call them the help.
Which is nice, but not the correct term.
Well, then I would call them... You've got such a gaze, Sandy. It's like the Eye of Sauron.
Sorry, but Sauron's got an N in it.
I would have said the nanny or a governess. Yes. Yes. I was essentially cajoled into that.
You were. So, not nanny, obviously, because how many N's have we got there, Susan?
At least two.
At least two. Also, not socially equal, the nanny. It's au pair.
Oh, no, I almost...
Au pair, been around...
How annoying, isn't it?
Start with your own. Oh, it was on the tip of my tongue there.
It's been around since the 1840s, the word au pair. Well, it literally means social equal, au pair.
Does it?
Yeah.
Have you met our social equal? She's really, really fit.
He's only run off with the social equal.
So, nobody doing very well, but I'm relying on Josh to get this one right.
Watch and learn.
OK, here we go. What do you call a Roman Catholic religious woman who has taken simple vows of poverty, chastity and obedience?
Is it the au pair?
That was guava.
Oh, it's difficult, isn't it, now?
Yeah, not so quick with the answers now.
Tracy? Go on, then. None.
None.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. The answer is a sister. So a nun has taken solemn vows, but a sister has taken simple vows. It's a technical difference to do with the repudiation of property. So a nun's solemn vow repudiates property absolutely. A sister's simple vow allows her to reserve an interest. Hedging her bets, Josh. Hedging her bets, that one. Right, Alan.
Yes.
Name any of the digits in the common emergency telephone number. There's an emergency number which is...
999.
999.
These great guys. They're great guys.
But the common emergency telephone number is 112.
Is it?
Yeah. So you can use it on a mobile phone, even if it's locked or you haven't got a SIM card.
It has got ends in 112.
Well, I asked you to name any of the digits in the common emergency number. So you could have said 2.
Oh, my word.
2.
Well, it's Christmas, so Alan wins that one. There we go.
Why did it take 300 years to give the giant tortoise a scientific name?
A scientific name?
Yeah, i.e. the Latin name. It turned out to be called Geochelonia, you know.
Is it because they just thought that was pretty good, giant tortoise?
We'll leave it with that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah?
No, I was going to say something about which now it's unusable. I'm going to have to say it now.
Go on. No, I thought with it, man.
They thought...
This better be good.
They thought it was a normal tortoise, but closer. It was what I was going to say.
You see what I mean? But I couldn't get that concept. It's like, would it be actually further away and a normal one further away would be actually a minute one? Would they mistake a quite far away normal one for a miniaturised one that's a bit ordinary?
Yeah, but the thing that you're saying is that the tortoise could be...
It's a further way. If they said...
I like it. Oh, go that way.
Yeah. If there was like a tortoise over there that was giant, but I for some reason thought it was just there, then I wouldn't think it was giant. I'd think it was just, oh, there's just one there. It was just a normal tortoise there, nothing about that. Oh my God, it's over there and it's back!
It would have to be on a huge beach with no other points of reference.
Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Are they...
That's not the reason.
Are they, are they particularly litigious? Now, if you give me a name, I will sue you.
No, it wasn't that. It's a nice thought again. No, they had another property which was most unfortunate for them to have.
What, the tortoises did?
Yeah.
They were edible.
They were so edible. Anyone, I mean...
Anyone who saw one couldn't stop to think of a name for it. They just had to eat it straight away.
Really? One of those...
Yeah.
Oh, they're cool. Just get one. They're really very good.
There's no Latin name for the pistachio nut. Exactly the same way. No one can be bothered. Just shut up with your Latin. Eat them. They're brilliant.
That's what happened.
No Latin name for Maltesers.
None of them made it. It's kind of true. None of them made it to London. None of them made it to Europe.
This time, we're going to take it and we'll take London.
Leave it. No.
However,
take it back. People getting up in a
ferry coming into Dover, there's a bloke going... leaving the door with a tortoise instead.
All right, look. Take 9 of them, we'll eat 8.
And everyone's looking at it and going, come on.
The seas become... The days on end, the seas become, there's one tortoise left.
Yeah.
Come on, sir. Come on, we'll go back. Let's just go back and get some more.
Imagine the moment after they've eaten that last quarter. They're sitting there thinking, we are twats. I'm too full.
Even Darwin, on Darwin's last dozens. There were dozens.
He collected every species in the world and ate that one.
They had them all. They did.
I've done all those. Done all the butterflies. Done all the beetles. I'm eating that.
The only descriptions of them are comparing them to chicken, beef, mutton, and butter, and saying they're how much better they are than all of those things. No one who'd ever eaten tortoise had ever eaten anything better.
Why
they said, and the liver and the bone marrow, every part of it was unbelievably
Whereabouts
delicious.
are they from?
Well, from the tropics, mostly.
Are there flights over there?
They are now protected. All 12 species.
They're that delicious, they can't be. Well, they say, yeah, we're protected them, they're all in there, no need to look.
They're fine. There's a border around them, like North Korea.
Yeah. There's a big pile of shells, like those piles of tyres you see in a scrapyard.
But there were some that survived, however, and let me tell you about a very extraordinary
that
one.
bloke there, he's just befriending that one. Yeah, come over here, my pretty. I'm trying to think of a name for you.
But they are amazing animals, apart from how delicious they are. Adwaita died in 2006, and he was Clive of India's pet. There he is.
Oh, they're 200 years old or something.
255. He was born before Mozart, before the French Revolution, and his death was announced on CNN. I mean, that's a heck of a life,
And you can list his achievements on the back of a stamp.
Well, why would he need to
Well, his principal achievement is it wasn't...
He lived 255 years. People think probably the oldest living creature because they don't live so long out of captivity like most animals, and he was, well cared for. But that is a pretty astonishing
It is quite... So it lived 255 years and is massive. I mean, I've achieved 50% of that. That's great.
There are 12 species of them, all of them endangered. Well,
They all taste nice?
Well, I don't know, but it's very sad that they have so many other species were, basically wiped out. just because they were so lovely. Not only that, they were also used as water stores. It sounds a weird thing, but they have a special kind of internal bladder that stores water so perfectly that it's drinkable. When you slit them open to cook them, you also get, you know, like a gallon of fresh water.
Wow.
So they would stack them up on boats, tons of them. They'd be stacked up, one on the other, and they couldn't move. And they didn't need to be fed for months, so that they actually contributed a lot to whaling and other things because they were used as a foodstuff and a water supply that was just kind of permanent.
So you've got the water as well, and imagine if you smash the shell open, there's like a little toy in there, like a Kinder. Like a little game, you've got to get the balls in the holes.
So how do they exist in the wild anyway, if they're so delicious and slow-moving and massive and useful?
They didn't have any natural predators until man discovered them, basically.
Right. So they were evolutionarily complacent.
They were exactly like a lot of island species. They're a lot like that. And it's only man who crosses islands in the way we do
like all those
who does it.
ridiculous flightless birds on New Zealand.
Yeah.
Essentially, they got lazy.
Yeah.
They got lazy. What's the point in flying? Now, some of them go, we'll need it one day. I bet we'll need it one day. Nah. You're too anal, you are. Just walk around, it's easier.
Yeah. Anyway, despite being discovered in 1535, giant tortoises weren't properly catalogued by science until the early 19th century because they were so delicious that no samples ever made it back home.
Don't you not want some points or not?
Well, that's very difficult to say yes or
What do you reckon?
There are 3 negatives.
Yes. Don't you not want some points or not? Do you not want some...
Do you not want some points?
Or not?
Do you not...
Do you not?
Well, we also don't know whether he does or not.
Yes.
Don't you not want some
points or not?
Or not?
Do not want points.
So here's the thing.
It's true to say that I do not want points.
Yes.
Or
So
not.
would mean that you do...
You'd say, do you want points or not?
No, yes, but...
the answer is... Well, there's 2 questions.
No, it's just one question with one answer, but I just tell you now, one answer has a klaxon and one doesn't. There. I think I'm giving too much away here.
Can we help
The show's nearly over. I'm filibustering.
Just,
You asked the question in English.
I did, yes.
English, there are 500,000 words in the Oxford English Dictionary. It is the largest language in the world.
Yes.
1,000 times no.
Oh, yes. Have you thought it like today?
Yes.
Yes is the right answer.
Yes isn't the right answer.
Oh.
It's not a yes-no question.
No, that's what I thought.
Well, but fundamentally, yes is better than no, is where we were heading. Although I was enjoying Giles's...
But curiously, the answer would have been different.
I didn't mean I'd come back to it.
No.
I wasn't enjoying it that much.
But interestingly, the answer in French would have been yes. Oh, no, no.
In French, you could have said, I don't know, which is je ne sais pas, which is a double negative. Or...
But if you translated, what did you originally say?
Is it too early to lose the will to live?
I'm extremely concerned, Sandy,
Yes.
that you,
yes,
a role model for women everywhere,
yes,
should, in fleshing out the double negative, come out with a statement broadly, yes is better than no. That's not what I'll be telling my daughter.
There's a lot of these in pop, aren't there? A lot of these in pop and rock lyrics.
Yes.
There's lots of I can't get no satisfaction.
Yes, there is. And if it's a positive double negative, like Tom Jones's It's Not Unusual, that's fine, OK? Because
Why is that fine?
Well, it never used to be a problem, the double negative. And then in the 18th century, they became obsessed with mathematics, and it's to do with mathematics.
Oh.
So they began to codify the language as being illogical if it didn't fit with mathematical thinking. So in mathematics, minus a minus is a plus.
Oh, do this in Danish.
Okay. Yeah. Så de tænkte mange år siden, at... I can do it. No, I won't do it now.
If you do that, I think I've had a stroke.
No.
I always just think there's a body being found as soon as I...
Why do doctors hit your knee with a hammer?
To test your reflexes.
Yeah.
That's correct. But what reflexes are they?
The reflexes of the...
It's because they don't like...
There's nerves that run from the thigh upwards to the
head.
No. No, you would think that.
It's something to do... So the expression's like a knee-jerk response.
A knee-jerk reaction, yeah, a knee-jerk
Because it doesn't go to the brain.
Yeah,
it goes... It communicates amongst itself.
Well, it goes
somehow.
up to the spinal cord. It doesn't go all the way up to the brain at all.
Yeah.
So it is unmediated by the brain entirely. It is absolutely a knee-jerk
It only
reflex.
happens in 2 times. One is when you get hit on the knee with a little hammer like that, and the other is when you're asleep on a crowded train. It's only 2 times. And you never see a doctor rushing off with a little hammer.
Anyway,
what if you did a murder with your reflex? If someone sort of attacked your knee and then reflex, you had a knife attached to your shoe or something, and you killed them, would you be able to say, but the reflex, it didn't go to my brain, it only went to the bottom of my spine, so I didn't really do it?
Yes.
That's like if you're driving and you have an automated response. It's called like murder by automaton, but you don't go to prison. So if you sneeze, for instance, and then you run someone over... Someone sneezed!
Talk about a reflex.
That means there's been a
murder! That's murdered someone!
Now they know they'll get away with it. It's something like...
If you walk into a room with a gun cocked, sneeze, it goes off, you kill someone, you're in the clear.
So if you want to kill your wife, what you do is you drive down to Dover, you get her right up against a cliff, and then you put your leg behind her and then get a doctor to tap the knee. Off she goes.
And the doctor would go to prison.
That would act up.
The doctor would go to prison.
I think so.
What if he was sneezing as he tapped the knee?
The perfect crime. Broadchurch Series 2.
I love this imaginary super compliant wife that you've found.
To be taken.
Just come all the way here and stand there. What are you doing here?
Why does the GP come with us?
Isn't it a lovely view, my love? Stand still.
Vietnam War. Who was buried in the tomb of the unknown warrior or soldier?
We don't know. I think all of them are anonymous, deliberately.
Sure, the whole nature of this show will mean that the unknown soldier, it'll be he wasn't a soldier, they knew him, and he wasn't dead.
He wasn't dead. The unknown soldier was actually buried in a replica of a large red chili somewhere in gold.
Was he an unknown soldier when he was still alive as well? He kept turning up and everyone said, "Howdy, how you doing?"
He seems keen to join in.
Who he is.
No,
that unknown soldier, he died. Oh, it's burying him.
No, what happened in the case of the Vietnam War was that there was an unknown soldier buried there, but there was a particular family who thought they heard that the unknown soldier had died in a helicopter crash, but they thought their own son had died in the same helicopter crash. And so in the 1990s, they persuaded the American government to do a DNA test on the unknown soldier, and it was indeed their son. So the remains were returned. So since then, it's been empty. It's unlikely there'll be another unknown soldier, because all American soldiers certainly are DNA profiled, and British ones too, so that they will always be known.
That's a happy ending, isn't it?
Yeah, but the original unknown soldier, do you know when this was, the first time it was done?
Was it after the First World
It
War?
was after the First World War. It was done in the year 1920, simultaneously in France and Britain. In Britain, there were 4 unknown soldiers, and a general pointed at one body, and that became the unknown soldier, who was honoured, it's rather wonderful this, with a state funeral in Westminster Abbey, with full military honours, entombed with a medieval crusader sword from the Royal Collection, in the presence of a guard made up of 100 VCs. And the guests of honour were 100 women, each of whom had lost her husband and all her sons in the war.
That's so
amazing,
isn't it?
An amazing ceremony.
And the cenotaph is actually a memorial to the unknown soldier,
Yes,
isn't it?
it is. That's right.
What it
So,
is.
I mean, it's a kind of
Was it
way
designed
of...
by Lutyens, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe. Yes. Very good. I think you must have points.
Oh,
I think
hope so.
Make up for the rather large collection of negative points you've been building up.
That's a very funny round, I think.
Well, no, it was.
You should see if we can pick it up
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah, but it was quite interesting, if not quite funny, and I think worth it. I mean, just amazing, I thought, that story.
Now, the year is 1792. It was a notable year for a number of reasons. It was the year the guillotine was first used.
Which was last used in 1960. Point for that.
No, because it's not true. You're wrong.
It is true.
No, it isn't. We'll come to that, I'm afraid. 1977. The last French... Sorry. No, it was a one-legged French criminal who was guillotined in 1977. 1792 was the year the guillotine was first used, and the year of birth of the inventor of the computer, and the death of the man after whom the sandwich is named.
What was invented?
Lord Sandwich.
Yes. Guess. Well, it wasn't going to be Nora Butty, was it?
Charles Babbage.
Charles Babbage, you're right, is the inventor of the computer, so you've all added to that.
Difference engine.
But yes, the difference engine.
I know how many people were at his funeral.
Oh, go on.
3.
Really?
Yeah, only 3 people went to his funeral. None of his friends turned up because he was a laughingstock by the time he died, and he'd invented the computer.
Yeah, I know.
Which was only recently,
they rebuilt one, didn't they?
Science Museum, and turned it, and it works.
In Vietnam, the guillotine was last used in 1960.
However, in France, in 1977...
En France.
En France, exactly, en France.
Has anyone survived it?
Well, was it, remember Jim Dale in the film...
Surviving, you can go.
That's smart. That's smart.
Sablon, anything.
Guillotine be gone.
Your head just flopping over.
Do you remember Jim Dale in the Carry On film, Don't Lose Your Head? And he's just being guillotined. It's in the French Revolution, they say. There's a note for you from Robespierre. It says, leave it in the basket, I'll read it later on.
There's a horrible truth to that, because, of course, it was maintained by contemporary witnesses that a lot of the heads were quite sentient.
Yeah. Why was it hard for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle?
Eyes to the right.
This is because it was a gate, wasn't it? It was a gate.
No. Christ, if you remember, says it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God.
Of course, and these were the days before liquidizers.
Yeah,
So there was no chance of pureeing up the thing and getting a straw, and... I mean, it would be a mess, but it would be doable, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, because remember, this is a rich man we're talking about. He would have people to
He'd
do
have
this
all
for
the
him.
white goods,
Yeah.
wouldn't he? You know, if there's anything...
Obviously, what happened is a lot of rich men read the Bible and thought, that can't be right, surely. So there are 2 get-out clauses. One was this idea that there was an eye of the needle gate in Jerusalem city walls, but there is absolutely no contemporary historical or archaeological evidence.
Well, actually, in biblical times, women's hands were significantly bigger than they are today, so a needle's eye could be 40 or 50 foot across. Enormous.
You still want that rich man to get through, don't you?
Well, the thing is, what someone told me, I might say, at my bloody school, which is still going, and it turns out it's talking bullshit. I
bet it was a private school.
Private school
where they don't like to get on the wrong side of rich people.
There are 2 sorts of gate to get into cities in those days. One that was quite wide, one that was quite narrow, and a fully laden camel couldn't squeeze through quite a narrow gate, and those were called eyes of needles. And what Jesus wasn't doing was being sort of sarky and going, it's about as easy for a rich man to get into heaven as to get a planet into a shoe. He was actually saying that if the camel was no longer fully laden, hence the wealth had been, dumped somewhere, then the camel went in easy
I
as you
don't know
like.
how rich you are. If all your stuff is on the back of one camel.
But it depends if it's diamonds.
Yeah,
That's
damn
really
rich.
rich. They hadn't found all the South African diamond mines then, so diamonds worth even more.
Yeah, good point.
The coronation of George IV, all the diamonds in the crown jewels were hired. The King of England wasn't rich enough to own enough diamonds for one poxy coronation. That's how expensive diamonds
Can you
were.
hire
now,
diamonds?
any sort of rap star's got
Of course
loads.
you can. At the Oscars, all the actors hire diamonds.
That would be the Everest of unsure engagements, wouldn't it? I've just rented this for a week. Let's see how things go. Let's wait till after you put
But no, you're absolutely right, David. That is precisely what...
Jesus was being
Jesus
sarcastic.
meant exactly what he said.
Should have just said, you can't. If you're rich, you're going to hell.
Yeah. Given the choice, what would be the next best thing to having a Nobel Prize winner in our audience tonight?
Dennis Leary had a great joke about the Nobel Peace Prize. He said, the Nobel Peace Prize, I'd kill for one of those.
That's very good. Now, there is a sort of serio-comic version of the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, it's the Ig Nobel Awards.
Yes. The Ig Nobel Prize is given to people who usually are genuine scientists who have conducted research, some of which is just a little bit weird. There, for example, we have on our left a woman who invented an emergency bra that could be torn apart and turned into a gas mask. And 2 gas masks, obviously. And there on the right is the inventor of the Ig Nobel Prize, Mr. Mark Abrahams. And I'm proud to say that in our audience we have a winner of the Ig Nobel Prize, Professor Chris McManus. Are you there? There he is. Hey! Now, Professor McManus. They called you in the press the oddball professor. Perhaps you'd like to tell us the reason you won the Ig Nobel Prize.
Well, I got the prize in 2002 for some work that was done half a lifetime earlier in 1976.
Yes.
And the paper was published in the most prestigious of science journals, Nature, and it was called Scrotal Asymmetry in Man and in Ancient Sculpture.
So your work was looking at how male testicles were asymmetrical?
Precisely.
I've got an issue. Well, maybe you could help because you're an expert.
Perhaps I should examine you afterwards. It's probably easier.
I think I can explain it. One of mine is bigger than the other two.
Very good. 1 million British horses were sent to the First World War front. What happened to the ones that survived?
They settled in the south of France, opened a caravan park.
Of course, they couldn't learn the language. Ended up moving back.
Ah, well, that's what they didn't do, is move back.
Did the French eat them?
Well, lots of people ate them. Probably they were turned into food or they were rendered into products. Yeah, the point is, 1 million horses is a heck of a lot, but almost none made it back home. They thought...
some did, because in Warhorse he did.
Yes.
He came back. He did come back.
1 million horses went to the First World War?
From Britain, yeah.
That's extraordinary. I mean, if you think about just the logistics of getting 1 million horses across the Channel, I mean, they're not all David Williams.
No, exactly. According to Michael Morpurgo, who wrote that book, Warhorse, you just mentioned, 8 to 10 million horses died in the First World War. And they didn't have a nice time of it, even if they did survive, because they thought they'd be diseased when they came back as well, so they just didn't want them. So it was a very sad chapter in our story.
Yeah.
It's a bummer, isn't it? I've silenced you.
It's like when they play the Black Beauty music, I just start crying. Well, you know the bit where Ginger dies? It's really, really sad.
You know what they call him Ginger?
So I would have that music at my funeral, definitely. Black Beauty music.
It's a deal.
I'll arrange it.
It's a deal.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We'll make sure it happens.
Good. Yeah, how fast is that coffin going to be moving? Quite a lick, by the sounds of things.
One of the most popular ones to have now with the coffin going on is the countdown theme. Like that.
It is bizarre the way people go crazy for horses, though. I remember being, like, in primary school. It was the first time I saw anyone... And it did a really weird thing. It really stuck in my head. And there was a little girl in our primary school class. We were, like, 6 years old. And she was just in floods of tears. Just crying, bawling her eyes out. And we kind of went, what's the matter? And she went, I just love horses so much.
Is that how you were?
I don't see why that's strange. I had to write one of those, you know, they sometimes ask you to write things for, you know, your first love. Genuinely, my first love was Frank, and he was a pony. Who wasn't very handsome. He had brown ears and a spotty neck and a really bad sweet itch, so his mane just kind of stood up in sections. And my mother always said, if you could love Frank, then everything in the world would always be beautiful, because you thought he was beautiful. And I did.
Oh, that's so touching.
He was lovely. He understood me.
There's a whole...
He did understand me.
Why little boys don't care about ponies? I know families who move because the girl, you know, for the sake of, you know, having more space so that maybe they can get a horse.
Well, we were emotionally mature a little earlier.
Yeah.
About 50 years earlier.
I would never move for a child's hobby. You know, I can see it like child go, but I love ponies. Yeah, well, I like this house, my own house. When you pay for the mortgage, you can stick a pony in every room, right?
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
All right, what are you asking?
Not your dad, all right?
All right. Thank you. So, yes, the fact is very few horses sadly made it home from the front. If they weren't killed in action, they were likely to be fed. Did Queen Victoria think of Mr. Bean? Yes.
We are not amused.
Albert would have liked it because he was German, and the Germans are mad for Bean.
That's true.
I was on a Lufthansa flight once, and everyone was howling with laughter all around me with headphones in. I couldn't understand why, and I looked, and they were all watching Bean.
Yeah.
They'd love it.
There's a certain efficiency about it. Yeah, this does something and falls over. It's very amusing. Before, he was walking in the straight lines, and he walked into the door. This is genius.
This is what happens when you break the rules.
Sometimes I stay up very late.
Can I take this off? Of course you can. Of course you can take it off, old thing. Yes. Is it uncomfortable?
They all lock.
It's Sean Locke.
I suspect it's not that Mr. Bean.
No,
Is there another Mr. Bean?
It was a man called John Bean, who was one of 3 people who tried to do something to Queen Victoria just in the 4th year of her reign, when she was a very slip of a thing.
Take her roughly behind the bike sheds.
No, or indeed invent the bicycle and then invent the shed with the...
Sell her tea towels door to door.
Kiss her on the mouth.
Quite the other.
Oh,
Kiss her on the other.
Is that a request? Is that you phrase it?
If you're the Queen, you can get anything done, can't you, really? You there, kiss me on, all right.
As much as kissing someone is a friendly act, these were unfriendly.
Surely he didn't turn down her advances with knockers like this.
How could you?
Kicked her in the shins.
No, 3 times in
Tried to
1842
murder her.
they tried to assassinate her, tried to kill her. And there was one called Mr. Bean who had a gun and he filled it with wads of tobacco, which didn't really do much harm.
Was he trying to give her cancer? I'd like the idea of Mr. Bean trying to assassinate someone by clumsiness. Yeah. Just, making a cup of tea, and the whole house collapses, the palace falls down. Everywhere he goes, it's basically a sort of tornado of disaster, isn't it?
Mayhem.
I was in a remote Australian sheep station once, and the bloke went, "Yeah, you ever watch that Mr. Bean?" And I went, "Yeah," and he goes, "That bloke's a bloody idiot."
That's fabulous.
He goes, yeah, he wouldn't last 5 minutes in the bush. well, no, clearly not.
Yeah.
So, what's the world's biggest river? And where is it?
Is it underwater?
It's a nice thought.
Amazon.
Oh! Hang on. There you go.
Nile.
Nile? Well, you just... No.
When you say biggest,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Widest, longest?
Carries the most water.
Carries most water.
You're going to be so angry. It's in the sky. They're called atmospheric rivers.
Oh, no, I got to say, sometimes on behalf of the audience, I hate this programme.
I agree, and I'm really... This is hurting you far more than it hurts me. No, they're known as atmospheric rivers. They're vast ribbons of water vapour moving water around the world. They appear in different places, different times.
Are they the
2,000
ones
kilometres
that
long.
are perfectly timed to coincide with bank holidays?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
They're the ones. 2,000 kilometres long and only a few kilometres wide. But although they cover less than 10% of the globe, 4 or 5 of them contain 90% of all the world's water vapour at one time. So the world's biggest rivers are in the sky. All right, I'm sorry about that. But seriously, name the world's biggest river that isn't in the sky.
Go on, Alan. Go on, Al.
An actual river
that
this
isn't in
time.
the sky. No, that isn't in the sky.
Is it one of those
still-
ones that Alan's mentioned already? Do you think, maybe?
No, there is a river under the Amazon called the Rio Hamza, and it is actually bigger than the Amazon itself. It's only discovered in 2011.
The Rio Hamza.
Exactly.
Is it sort of hook shape?
A rather sad coincidence, I'm afraid.
River hated by the tabloids.
Hated by the tabloids. Yes, they collected data from 241 abandoned deep wells, and it runs 6,000 kilometres, like the Amazon above it, but is up to 4 times wider. And that's 200 to 400 kilometres wide.
How far down is it?
4 kilometres beneath the Amazon itself. I mean, some people would say it's an aquifer, but it actually flows horizontally like a river. So and it is called Rio, which is river.
Do things live in it?
There's
There must be
always something,
organisms.
isn't
There's
there? No
usually.
matter how crap a place is,
Yeah.
Attenborough always goes, even here. Something very stupid
Something comes by.
has built his house.
Black and
doesn't matter.
The Muppets.
He'd go anywhere, wouldn't he?
The organism Muppet.
Yeah.
A little light on his head.
It's
and here they are mating.
It's absolutely true. The first dictionary in English?
Oh, yes. Johnson.
Samuel Johnson.
Samuel Johnson?
Oh.
It wasn't Samuel Johnson. I led you down the garden path and
Baldrick.
spanked you. Baldrick.
B.
Probably a B, yes.
Very good. We're going to have to write the whole dictionary tonight.
Dr. Johnson's dictionary, which was written in the earlier part of the 18th century, was preceded by... Well, there was...
Famously, the first
There were
dictionary.
lots, weren't there?
There was a Richard Mulcaster in the 16th century who came up with the name football, in fact, and indeed invented refereeing and the idea of football teams. But he wrote Elementary in 1582. He was the first to gather all the words which we use in our English tongue out of all professions, as well learned as not, into one dictionary. But he didn't give definitions. He just listed all the words that he thought they existed. But in Robert Corddry's Table Alphabetical of 1604, not only listed words, but gave definitions, so it was perhaps the first true dictionary in the sense that we know it. It listed around 3,000 hard words, as he called them, defining each one. So then Johnson's dictionary had how many entries? Around the time there were about 250,000 or 300,000 words. How many did he list?
42.
So, you were so close, 42,000, wasn't it? That was really close. 42,773. But we've got some Johnson words that have gone out of use, and maybe you can mention what they mean. Tongue pad.
Mouth friend.
Mouth friend. Don't we all need a mouth friend?
Sometimes we certainly do need a tongue pad and a mouth.
Sometimes I like a frigorific.
I hear you, girl.
Frigorific.
Yeah, we've all been frigorific in our time. A double latte is, I
That's
think
a
it's
coffee.
single shot,
You
isn't
can
it?
get those in...
Yeah, just after Aguilar. It's depucillate.
Oh, that's what you do before a big date, isn't it? Yeah.
You're meeting a mouth friend.
Yes.
You get a bit of tongue pad. Slip in the old shapesmith.
Is a shapesmith just a rubbish blacksmith?
No, a shapesmith is basically what we...
I've done a thing. You've been to the shapesmith, yeah. Sort of looks like a doorknob.
Yeah, it's not a horse shoe, but it's sort of horse jewellery.
Like a horse clog.
nipple
They found in Camden Market and sold all that crap.
No, a shapesmith is actually what we would call a personal trainer. It's someone who gets you into shape and improves the shape of your body. It's
Time
a
for that
shapesmith.
word to come back. I think.
Shapesmith, exactly.
I'm going to see my shapesmith.
My shapesmith. A tongue pad.
I hate that.
A tongue pad is just a great talker who just gives someone who just natters all the time. A mouth friend is... it's someone who is a friend to your face but is duplicitous behind your back.
Oh, God, I know a few of those.
Yeah, a few mouth friends. Pretends to be your friend. To depucillate is to deflower, to bereave of virginity.
It's not a bereavement.
To pluck the...
Let's not see it as that. Frigorific sounds like something Del Boy might say, but what is it?
It actually, I suppose we would... It's probably rather badly spelled. We should pronounce it, yes, cold. Should pronounce it frigorific, probably. It just means causing cold. Something that's frigorific. Causes cold. So, some of his definitions were just a little bit lazy. Sock. Something put between the foot and the shoe.
He must have thought, though, because, you know, previously the one before you say had been just of hard words. He must have just thought, look, everyone knows what a sock is.
If you can read, you'll know what a sock is.
Yeah, if you've got this book and you don't know what a sock is, then I can't help you.
Exactly. Oates was a famous one.
I guess he said horrible things about the Scots in his one on oats, didn't he?
He did. He said a grain which in England is generally given to horses, but in Scotland supports the people. He describes the worm to deprive a dog of something, nobody knows what, under his tongue, which is said to prevent him, nobody knows why, from running mad. It's just a very strange...
Wasn't a scientist, then?
No, I think probably not. What was Darwin's problem with brown owl, and why did he not describe it?
Now, clearly, if one makes a joke about Girl Guides here, like he was traumatised during a period in the Girl Guides.
Before...
Help me now.
We even predicted your mistake, because I think brown owl brown is.
Yeah.
Yeah. He must have died before...
Before the brownies existed, exactly.
He probably ate it or something.
Ah! So he ate brown owls, you're saying?
Well, actually, he didn't, because he described it as indescribable, which is why he didn't describe the brown owl. Well, actually, as food, he meant, because Charles Darwin, one of the greatest scientists, one of the greatest men, really, of any age, was considered a very dim pupil and couldn't spell and was terrible at arithmetic and went to Cambridge. The only subject his father thought was fit for him was divinity. And he spent his time chasing rats and shooting and looking at animals and eating strange animals. He was a member of the Gourmet Society, or the Gluttons, as it was known at Cambridge, and their aim in life was to eat as many rare and peculiar animals, like bitterns and hawks. But brown owl, they didn't like at all. And all the others became bishops and archdeacons.
Does this still exist, this club?
Exists. Stephen's the president of it.
Yeah, otherwise you write me around for Fox on creme.
Right. I drink panda. That's the... Oh, it's lovely.
I've got a book at home. It's equivalent to the Collins Book of Birds from 1850. And after describing each bird, at the end it will say, for instance, a buzzard tastes a little bit milder than a golden eagle. Yes. But still quite palatable.
Does it have a wine recommendation at the bottom? You suggest a Chablis or a New World Merlot.
Do you know what you should drink with the beating heart of a cobra? This is a dish in China where you get a cobra and it's brought to the table alive. They then slice it open, rip the heart out, and it's beating on the plate there. You have to chase it around the plate, I suppose. And then you drink the blood of the snake as the wine.
Actually, I ordered the lasagna.
What's the most disgusting thing you've ever eaten, Alan?
Earwax.
Your own? It was your own, that's all.
It's really horrible.
Very bitter.
I mean, if just a tiny bit on the end of your fingers.
Sweet and sour.
Imagine if you had to have a sandwich of it. Really like a block of it.
Anyway, a phylum feast is held on the 12th of February every year by zoologists and biologists, in which they try and eat as many different species as possible, in honour of Charles Darwin, whose birthday...
An ingenious interlude. Have a look at this glass tank behind you and tell me how many balls there are in there.
1, 2, 3.
Well done, Alan.
4.
So far, so good.
Yeah. 5. Yeah. 5.
The worst episode in the National Lottery.
So how many are in there, would you say? 5. 5. Well, it looked like 5, didn't it? You might be rather surprised to know that there are actually over 1,000 glass balls in there. And we can show you perhaps a better view of how many there are. What's that? Look. They're all invisible, and in fact, we have an example of precisely these kinds of... There they are.
Yeah, they're gooey.
They're really weird. They're called hydrogel beads.
But I can't see them.
You can see them, yes, and we deliberately allowed them to be visible. But in large glass tanks, they wouldn't be visible.
If you push one underwater, it goes invisible.
Exactly, and they have the same refractive index as water, which, as you know,
Which means lights can pass through at the same angle.
So they appear to be invisible in water.
We can't see it!
Yeah.
Quick, a hairdryer.
It's gone down the set.
Is there a...
Suddenly going to start floating away.
Is there a use for them?
Yeah, there we are. I've got a glass of water there.
Are they worth £500
£7.
each?
Are they edible?
I wouldn't want to take responsibility, but I don't think they'll do you any harm.
Try one.
What are they? What are they used for?
Well, they have a commercial use, actually.
Oh, I broke it.
Oh, no. Is it burst?
Yeah, it burst.
No, it's sort of gone into pieces, actually.
It's like... Oh, yes, it's rather strange material. Can you guess their commercial use?
Packing things.
Oh. No, flower arranging is one.
Is it for packing goldfish when you get them through
Why aren't they making battleships out of this stuff?
Isn't it... Well, who knows? All kinds of new
Submarines.
uses
Make a
may be
submarine
found.
out of it.
I have to say, this feels gorgeous.
It's quite good, isn't it? Oh, it's quite a good feel.
Addictive, isn't it?
It's really... There's there's something quite gorgeous about that. Mm.
Yeah.
It's just...
Might have a play around with that later.
Yep, he might. Another use is the manufacture of...
Yes, disgusting.
Another use...
Jack's going to put his willy in it.
Oh, dear.
Oh, I've already put it in, that one.
It's weird, because when you put it in, you couldn't see it.
It has the same refractive index.
Every time you think of a comeback.
Yeah, the other use, apart from flower arranging, is the manufacture of contact lenses.
It'd really freak people out if you put them in your eyes, wouldn't you? Big,
well,
big
obviously, yes, not necessarily in the round.
Marty Feldman's contact lenses.
Any of these coming up in any of this?
Some domestic appliances that really nobody wants.
In a vicarage, a tie rack.
That is good. I can't take that away from you.
Can I appeal? I'm appealing, sir. There's an act of great pedantry here, but there's not technically an appliance.
And this is electronic tie.
An auto steam tie rack.
There are electric tie racks. Yeah, there are tie racks that go zzz, like
Really?
that. Yeah, there are.
Such a thing exists?
Electric ones, I promise you.
Wow.
And that actually takes us to what the right answer is. When you said steam,
Those Corby trouser presses that you have in hotel rooms.
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone use or heard of anyone using.
Brilliant. Do you mean others don't?
You've
Am I
used
the only
one?
one?
I used them.
I used them. But not necessarily
well,
for
I'm completely
trousers. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Whoa. Anyway, there's a whole load of appliances that were made in the 1920s and 30s when a lot of British people were starting to get a little bit more prosperous just before the crash. And they thought about going on the electric, as it used to be said. We're going on the electric. And what would be the killer app that would put them on the electric, the thing they wanted to have most?
Electric light?
That would be one.
Plug-in radio?
The wireless set. Yeah. And who were the other main suppliers other than electricity that had already been there? Gas. They thought, well, what we'll do is provide gas-powered radios to stop people from going on the electric. And there's an example of one. And they put them out and they said, oh, not only will you get the BBC, but you will warm the room slightly.
Increase the glow of your contentment.
Increase the chances of your house exploding. And not only did they produce wirelesses, they produced trouser presses, oddly enough, washing machines, washing up machines, everything that you can think of that is a household appliance, a white good, as we would now say.
There were gas-powered fridges, weren't there?
Yes, there were indeed. Very much so. But they just didn't catch on because electricity was just more reliable. And it's not that the gas actually powered the radio so much as that the gas created the current that powered the radio. So it was still electric, it's just you use your existing gas main. What is 3 times more dangerous than war?
3 wars.
Is it doing a Yui on the A40?
This is according to the United Nations.
It's probably something really inane, like cycling, trampolining.
It's work. More likely to die at work than you are at war.
Does that include soldiers?
What if you work in a shoe shop near a war?
I can always guarantee you will find some cunning way to make me not know anything. And I don't know what the statistics are for people who work in shoe shops near wars.
How many times have they actually had a war in a shopping centre? It's very rare that first world countries get invaded, but if they did, you could have a shootout in a multiplex, couldn't you?
If you lived in South London, you'd find a lot of wars in shopping centres.
I've been arrested in a shopping centre.
Have you? Tell us why.
For an act of war?
I knocked a security guard's hat off.
Recently?
A very Bertie Wooster thing to do.
Yeah. I didn't even do it on purpose, I was taking my jumper off. I was absolutely arsehole as well. And you're very much hearing my side of the story. I called it actually rather a story of defence.
I read a thing once that said 1/3 of all accidents at work go unreported. How do they know?
Lumberjacks have the most dangerous job in America, it appears. 122 deaths per 100,000 employees.
So that song's entirely wrong, is it?
Yes. Exactly.
How could you die doing that? Just trees falling on you?
You're saying trees falling on you like that's a bit of a pansy way to go. That's a legitimate way to die.
It's just the only real sort of peril, isn't it?
There's a lot of chainsaws.
But also, you're not very well protected in panties and a bra, are you?
And also, if you're a lumberjack, you're supposed to be good at it.
Yeah.
Not supposed to chop down trees and go, oh, it's the other side, isn't it?
Well, now, yes, according to the United Nations, more than 2 million people die from work-related accidents, as opposed to 650,000 people a year who die in war. What was the most disastrous haircut ever? Yes. Some examples for you there.
I've got two answers I'm going to get the screen going up there. One is my last haircut. No, or Samson's haircut. Samson's haircut done...
No, Samson's haircut's a very good answer, actually.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yes. You've just noticed.
Well, you must remember posing for these, or has this been...
I remember the one in the middle. The other two, I have no memory.
I know for a fact that in 1928, the New England Tool and Die Manufacturing Company was looking for a new screw that wouldn't slip out of the notch. Yeah. And a man named Phillips worked for him, who had one of the most disastrous haircuts ever. It was parted in 4...
That would be an example of a disastrous haircut that went good. This one, well, I mean, of course, there are many candidates, and Samson is one, but do you know anything about Louis VII of France? There he is on the left. We're talking about the 13th century. His queen became queen of a more famous king to us, being British.
Aquitaine.
She was Eleanor of Aquitaine,
yeah,
absolutely
long
right.
Hair, yes.
The point is, Louis VII was very religious, and the monks got to him, and he cut that hair off. He looks rather good there, but apparently he cut all his hair off, and she was furious at it.
Oh, right.
So cross that eventually she divorced him. I mean, there are other things too, probably, but the hair is mentioned by historians as one of the things...
He also cut his cock off.
Maybe, I don't know, his mother may have sold her...
Has your mother sold a mangle?
Maybe that had happened, yeah.
I divorce you.
But the consequences of the divorce were enormous, because she then went over, she was incredibly rich, she took her kingdoms with her, married Henry II, and it began the 100 Years' War.
Yes.
So essentially it was the haircut that began a 100 Years' War.
Yeah, but that's just something you say in polite company. Like when you're telling people you're breaking up with your partner, you go, yeah, well, I ain't like what he did with his hair, so I left. You can't really say about the king, he keep farting in bed. I just don't like his haircut.
Yeah. You're right. What is interesting about this poor king is he definitely wouldn't have had sexual relations with Eleanor's mother because he was very abstinent indeed, and he became ill, and the courtiers suggested it was because he hadn't had sex. Yeah. And so he consented to have the Queen sent for, and they said, no, she's too far away. If you don't have sex immediately, you will die. But genuinely being told that he had to have sex or he would die, he actually said he would rather die chaste than live an adulterer.
See, that leads you to believe that he had a bad sexual experience as a child.
Yes.
And just, you know, because, you know, most men wouldn't rather, like, face death than have sex. So something happened when he was a kid, maybe a teenager, maybe his wee-wee got caught in the zipper, or he mangled, or...
Yes, the mangle.
Or he said, I'm not ready for this yet, maybe just let me lick your elbow. And the woman just said, do what you do best. And...
Very good. The Simpsons make a reference to the 100 Years' War.
Oh, do they?
Do you know what they call it? Operation Speedy Resolution. Anyway, so, we've all had bad hair days, but the one which helped start the 100 Years' War...
Tell me all about the 12 Frenchmen and the 12 mosquitoes. Dara, Briain.
Once upon a time, there were 12 Frenchmen called Happy, Sleepy, Arrogant, Furieux, des choses comme ça, bof, and zut alors. That's 6. Fenêtre, boulangerie.
Le table.
Le table, of course, and jambon et fromage, the twins. And they used to travel around with mosquitoes, solving adventures.
And what were the mosquitoes called?
Fuzzy,
Sticky.
It was a very, very low-rent 1950s French detective season that involved, at some point, the extraction of a tiny amount of blood from one of the suspects.
Do you know what else a mosquito can be other than a...
It was a World War II plane. Made out of wood.
Made out of wood, exactly, made out of balsa wood and plywood. What was their great raid?
Tuck shop.
I don't know, was it made into a film?
It was. There were 12 members of the Resistance, the Maquis, and they were due to be shot by the Gestapo. And the Allies would send in these 12 mosquitoes to bomb the chateau in Amiens, so all the prisoners would escape.
I can't believe that they just blow the bloody doors off.
Basically, that was
the whole place with 12 bombers.
You're right. What happened was they had to go down an avenue of poplars, which was so narrow they had to fly.
Down the avenue of poplars?
Yeah, but exactly like that. That's what you'll have to do. There were 700 prisoners in the prison. 102 were killed by the raid to start with. 74 were wounded.
Yeah.
Then 258 escaped, of which 179 were rounded up within the next few days by the Germans again.
My girlfriend's grandfather flew one of those, and he actually goes now and visits in Germany with the Luftwaffe pilot whose plane he shot down during the war. And they go and they sit around and, you know, go, ha, great days. But neither of them speak the other language. Like he doesn't speak German, the Luftwaffe doesn't speak English, but they sit there and...
Sit back and...
Yeah. The temptation, if you're standing behind it...
And for over 50 years, that German man has been peeing in your granddad's tea.
We had an airfix model of one of those. I gave it to my dad for his birthday, and he made it before breakfast.
You put the transfers on?
Yeah, painted it and everything.
Yeah. That was a pain, because you had to put them in hot water and wait for them to slip off. And then, of course, with chubby 6-year-old fingers, you just end up covered in swastikas. It's not a good look here. You go to school and they think you're in the BNP, and it's, no, I've been trying to make a hindcall, sir.
What's this guy on about? That was a 1972, rather before its time, piece of rap by an incredibly famous Italian called Adriano Celentano, who is not known here. He had a huge hit with this, which is called Prisen Collinen Sinai Chuzo. You can see it written up, and that'll help you.
Oh, wow.
Prisen Collinen Sinai Chuzo, in the Colmen Seuvan, Prisen Collinen Sinai Chuzo, all right.
Which is Italian for Gangnam Style.
Yeah. What it is just babble.
Yeah,
it's babble that is supposed to sound like English. To an Italian, it sounds more or less like English sounds.
There's that famous clip of the person on Malaysia's Got Talent where they're singing Mariah Carey, Can't Live Without You, which is possibly the greatest song ever recorded. But she's heard it clearly through Second Party and doesn't know what the lyrics are. So she bursts into the chorus and she just goes, Ken Lee Booty Bootachu. This is about a guy called Ken Lee.
Anyway, that was a huge hit in 1972. #1 in Italy, and it was in the top 10 in France and in Belgium and the Netherlands. It's babble that is supposed to sound like English. But in 2011, London-based filmmakers Briain and Carr produced a wonderful film called Squirrel, which used a similar technique. The dialogue is actually gibberish, but sounds like English. It's had over 7 million viewers, and we can actually show you a bit of it here. Run VT.
Swine for me, display the Joe drink all around the masturbatation town while I for mass the Pope for cream and you want for why I chose Farinol? You want for why I bleed the whole chase between? You wanna get for what?
That wasn't gibberish, but we've got them here tonight. Brian and Carl, thank you very much. One of the hardest things to do in the world is to talk gibberish without it becoming... Did you actually learn your gibberish?
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you imagine that there was sense behind it? He thinks she's forgotten his birthday. Is that what
That's one interpretation. I'm not an actor, but Fiona, who's in the film, is an actress, and so she needed to know what this was about. She needed the intentions, but I think it was important to kind of have a sort of a sense behind what we were saying.
It was a lot like what you were talking about with the Mariah Carey, Ken Lee and stuff. We sort of had the sentences and then kind of garbled them and kind of wrote down the garble as it came out.
I understood more words in that clip, though, than I did in 5 series of The Wire.
And are you Australian, but?
Yeah, I'm Australian, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Because we had a similar thing that we do where we don't use words...
Do you think I haven't noticed?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you have another thing you do, which just sounds as if you've got heartburn.
That's how they get the actors on Home and Away to do an emotional scene. They just give them heartburn.
Right.
Oh, Stephen, the cafe's burnt down again. Australians will make enough noises that could be a sentence, but there are no actual words in it. It's just, I'll try. So, Carr, you having a good night? You all right?
Yeah, right, it's all right, man.
You enjoying your time at QI?
I was all right, I know what you're about.
Also, I have a similar thing that I can do with posh people. This gentleman in the front row here, with the blue trousers.
Sorry, that's wonderful, Brian and Carl. Thank you very much indeed. Very welcome. And be honest, have you ever enjoyed a shower in chocolate sauce?
So, is this a euphemism?
It emphatically is not. And everybody's to put away those thoughts.
No, I've put my hand in a chocolate fountain.
We are almost certain you have enjoyed a shower in chocolate sauce.
Oh.
Oh, hello.
I was so drunk, Sandy.
I suspect that most of you have, not necessarily all of you.
It sounds a niche area of interest, certainly.
Well, let's think of films that have got showers in them. And
Psycho.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was a good film.
Yeah. And the shower scene is the pivotal scene.
Oh,
I think
because
I know
it's
what
black
you're
and
going to
white.
say.
It's
That's
black and white.
The water doesn't read on film.
The water does.
It's the blood. The blood. Is,
It was a chocolate sauce.
Bosco chocolate.
Bosco's chocolate sauce was used for the blood. And actually, talking as we were earlier of editing, one of the reasons it is the most famous scene possibly that Hitchcock directed, and one of the most famous scenes in all cinema, is that it contains 77 different camera angles and 50 cuts and lasts only 3 minutes. And I've done this. I've sat there counting the number of cuts in 3 minutes.
Wow, you must get out, Stephen.
Silly
Really.
Because films
Sitting
are...
next to you at the cinema. Like,
No, not in the cinema.
who's Paul Rain Man with him?
50 cuts there!
Stop the clock.
When I was a kid in the States, we used to have ice cream with Bosco chocolate sauce on it. And you couldn't serve it without going, It was the sort
so
of
you all
noise.
knew? Yeah,
so it was
that's
the
right. Have you seen Psycho?
I have not, no.
You see, your generation, you just don't go for the
it's
classics.
great.
Because it's black and white, you go...
I'm waiting for it to come out on Twitter and then I'll...
Exactly.
The sound of the stabbing, I think, was a knife in a melon.
Absolutely right. And actually, Hitchcock first wanted the scene to be just, as they say, effects. In other words, the sound of the water, the sound of the shower curtain being torn, and the sound of the knife going into the cassava melon. But his favourite composer, who composed a lot of his films, Bernard Herrmann, wrote this astounding score with these jagged things and begged him to listen to the version with it. And Hitchcock said, "You're right," and actually doubled his pay on the movie.
Hitchcock sounds like Jeremy from Top Gear.
Sounds exactly like that. You're right. You're right. Yes. Just 2 seconds in and you're nursing a semi. Everybody was against him making the film. He'd just made North by Northwest, one of his most lavish, colourful, beautiful, extraordinary thrillers, and he wanted to be known for a different kind of film because he was always experimenting, always trying different things.
That film is so clever, Psycho, because you're with Janet Leigh all the way from the beginning. She hatches this plan, she's got this money, she's on the
Steals
run.
40 grand.
You can't wait to see what's going to happen. And then She's gone halfway through the film.
Oh, thanks for spoiling it.
Oh!
Thank you.
I don't feel I have, really.
No, we didn't.
Given the
You might
picture of
have
her
guessed.
being murdered in the shower.
Do you remember the last shot of the
pretty
tower
early
scene? Just to get really nerdy.
What is it? Isn't it the eye and the...
That's right. Her head's sideways down. It's all the shots are... There's no long shots. All mid-shots and mostly close-ups. And he was so concerned to get it right that there just wasn't time for her to get accustomed to these contact lenses that would give her dilated pupils, which freshly stabbed people have, apparently. And so that was the one inaccuracy he was rather annoyed with. But no one wanted to make the film. Paramount said, no, they wouldn't make it. He said, all right, then I'll make it in black and white to be cheaper. And they said, no. He said, well, I'll use my TV crew. He used a TV crew to make it, not a film crew. And one of the most successful movies of all time. It was nominated for Best Picture, Oscar, you know, and...
It's
marvellous.
worth seeing, Trevor, but not with Stephen. Just
No.
saying.
Sorry.
Daniel, take you.
I'll take you. Do you know, this evening has changed my life.
What is Australia's deadliest creature, in fact?
Oh,
Yeah.
Rupert Murdoch.
After Rupert
So
Murdoch.
sorry about
After
the
Rupert
fact he
Murdoch.
came here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
excluding a member of the human race, which I'm not sure whether that does or not, but anyway...
Is it the spiders, the funnel web, the red
It's going to be
Yep.
something on the road, isn't it?
It's the box jellyfish.
No, it's not. That is a nasty creature.
Is it people?
Is it rabbits? Is it rabbits running in front of utes or some sort of... it's gotta
You're
be
certainly
something-
right that most of the deaths
gonna be
caused by
a-
animals in Australia are caused on the road, but the animal that is most responsible...
Crocodile?
Is it man? The most deadly of all
Snake.
Shark.
No.
Can you say that? I've not born there.
It's not about a cat, though. In the year under the sample year we're taking, one human being in Australia was killed by a cat that year. But 128...
A cunning plan executed skillfully and quietly. Is it?
It's the road. The road's involved.
Often the road.
Are the people in the car at the time?
Sometimes, yes,
Oh,
but,
kites. Is it the...
but sometimes they're on the animal involved.
They're on the
Horses?
It's a horse, yes. A horse. More people are killed by horses than... It's a very angry horse there.
That one needs a dental hygiene appointment ASAP.
Seriously does. Yeah, because they fall off and break their neck, or indeed they cause car crashes and so on. And horses kill 3 times more than the ones you've mentioned.
When we lived in Australia, my wife bought a horse, and she's desperate to try and get me to ride, right? So she said, I bought this horse, it's really docile, you'll be fine.
They never are.
So I got... Well, no, there was actually... The problem was it was too docile. What happened was it ended up being studied by Melbourne University because it was one of the few horses that was... medically got narcolepsy. So I swear to God, it's one of the rare cases of a narcoleptic horse. So she buys this horse, and she said she couldn't work out why every time when she was grooming it, it would get heavier. Like that. And so she couldn't groom it because it would fall on her. So she says to me, "It's fine. The horse is narcoleptic. Get on it." And so I got on it in full motorbike gear because I wasn't taking any chances. And I sat on this horse, and it started to just... And you know, normally you kick a horse to make it go. This one, he kicked it and it would go, what? Hey? Like that. To make it up. And sometimes it would fall asleep against the electric fence. So it would go like that. Hey! It's like Jack Douglas from the Carry On.
Oh, well, that's my kind of horse, frankly.
Yeah.
But it is the horse, anyway, that turns out to be the deadliest animal. In what way is Iceland's most recent volcano similar to Genghis Khan?
I think they're both shag nasties. Genghis Khan apparently has shagged everything that moves, and that he is the father and mother of all populations in Europe and Asia, so he shagged everything that moves. And the volcano, of course, has spurted out, had an orgasm of ammonia, and has fertilised Europe. Damn good answer.
I have to be
To be brutally honest and say that's not what's on my card.
Oh, shit!
But if there was no such thing as science, you'd be right. I think I know what it is.
Yes, go on.
I think, obviously, that volcano stopped lots of transport going on.
Yes.
He must have stopped something happening, which the volcano stopped happening.
You're in this right here. The odd thing is it's both very beneficial, especially at the moment. It's the thing we talk about a lot. Now, that volcano poured out, they reckon, between 150,000 and 300,000 tons of carbon dioxide. So there's a huge amount of carbon came out as a result of it. But, if you remember, no one flew for however long it was, and the lack of flying saved 3 million tons. So, in fact, it was a huge offset of carbon. And in the case of Genghis Khan, he slaughtered his way across the world and had the largest empire the world has ever seen. 4 times bigger than that of Alexander, twice the size of the Roman Empire. And he killed about 40 million people. And the result was there was so little farming that the forests grew back. And you can time a huge benefit to the world from his slaughter. But that's rather extraordinary, isn't it?
So what do we have to pronounce?
Now, yes, that's what I was... How did you know that I was going to ask that as a supplementary question?
I thought you already did.
Oh, did I already say it?
Oh, that or I read it off the
Oh, you read it off the audio? You great big cheater!
There.
I would now like you to pronounce the name of the volcano, and it's written up there for you.
Oh, God alive. You're prawn rings.
You should have been a newsreader.
With your accent, you've got the best chance.
It looks a bit like that, yeah? Any thoughts?
Ye Jaff Yally Jockroll. Yeah.
Brian,
I think... Yeah, Jeff, yeah, Jockroll. Then I'm saying it, woman just got...
You may have set it off again by doing that.
Yeah. I think the umlaut changes it, doesn't it? Those 2 little dots.
The 2 dots.
Yeah. And I think, actually, the way you're supposed to pronounce it is... Hutch.
If only.
It changes it.
Apparently, it's Ea Fayat Leyokodl.
And is that translated big smoky bastard?
Yes.
Yeah. You will go by ferry.
Basically, why are there so many lavatories in the Pentagon?
One each.
One each. Do you know how many people work in the Pentagon?
Thousands.
23,000.
Whoa.
There aren't 23,000 lavatories, so... No, I'm afraid it's a really ghastly reason. Where is it?
Virginia.
Virginia. Virginia was a southern state, and it had laws. And those laws...
racial segregation.
Segregation. It was a law that you had to have 1 lavatory for white people and 1 for black people. So there were double the number. I'm afraid it's true. It's a horrible truth. It shouldn't have happened because it was built in the 40s under the presidency of FDR, who had specifically outlawed racial segregation in federal, because he couldn't legislate for the states, but he could at least say that no federal building. And so when he arrived for his first inspection, was told that he was furious that there were all these lavatories.
Well, it's not very PC, that's true, but have you ever been for a queue in the ladies' loo?
So it's nice for you that there are so many...
Yes, in a way.
You
but
racist.
No.
No. They didn't actually go through with it. I mean, although they built them all for that reason, they were banned from using it, and they were never racially...
And look at all the tennis courts they've got as well.
Well, it's vast. That centre bit alone, just to give you a sense of the scale, is 5 acres. Just the middle bit. 17.5 miles of corridor, and these 284 lavatories. 6 separate zip codes. Just the Pentagon. But, apparently, it takes only 7 minutes to walk from one place to another.
Only 1 cleaner they have.
How many men have been president of the United States?
Oh, it's 46 or something?
Well, shall we ask the great man himself? Shall we ask the current president?
Is he here?
Is he here tonight? Ladies and gentlemen.
What a waste of a guest.
I'm glad we've given up my seat. I think he sat in the audience for this one.
Here he is, the president, but which number of the United States? He's here to tell us.
I thank President Bush for his service to our nation. As well as the generosity and cooperation he has shown throughout this transition. 44 Americans have now taken the presidential oath.
He's wrong. He made a mistake.
He's only been on once and he's wrong already.
He is currently known as the 44th, just as Bush was known as the 43rd, but they aren't. Bush was the 42nd and he is the 43rd.
Oh.
Do you know why this is?
One of them was invisible.
Was there someone who was president for a bit and then stopped being president? Someone else was president and came back?
There was one non-consecutive president, who was the 22nd and the 24th.
Why did they count him as two? That doesn't make any sense. Yet they count Clinton as one.
Yeah, because his terms are consecutive. This one was the 22nd, then Benjamin Harrison was president, and then he was the 24th. This was Grover Cleveland.
I think if I was doing that, if I was setting that system up, I would have gone for the number of different men. Right?
Yes.
I would say, you know, that you get a new number if you're a different man.
Person, exactly.
Not if there was a gap.
No, I know, but there's only ever been one gap, and for some reason they didn't do that. So when he took his second oath, he was called the 24th president, although he was the same man who'd been the 22nd.
Well, he was actually Stalin.
He was, he does look a bit like
yeah. So not only did he rule Russia, kill millions of people, he was two presidents of the United States.
It's a weird system,
That's
isn't
a CV.
It's quite a bombshell.
Now we know what he was doing in between presidents.
Yeah, exactly. Barack Obama is, in fact, the 43rd person to become president of the United States because Grover Cleveland held the position twice with a 4-year break in between, making him the 22nd and the 24th president of the United States. How many real friends do you have?
Just one, James Taylor.
What a friend you have in him, yeah.
I've
Moving
got to
on.
4.
4 friends you've counted, have you?
Well, actually, I'm not sure about him. Because he once spiked my drinks and stole my trousers when I was...
No, you can definitely cross him out.
He's coming off the list, yeah.
Which did you do first?
Drinks first, Phil.
I don't know, maybe he's agile. Good friend. You say
yeah.
that a friend will help you, a friend will come over to your house and help you move, and a good friend will help you move a body.
That's good.
I have 2 good friends.
Oh, Rich. Oh, that's disturbing. There is this thing called a Dunbar number. Does that mean anything
Yeah, it's
to you?
about 100 and something.
You're right. There was a
120
professor
or
of evolutionary anthropology at Oxford University called Dunbar who calculated, if the calculation is the right word, that we can't have more than 150 friends. And obviously, some of us have a very high doctrine of friends.
150?
Yeah. He defines it this way.
I don't even know 150 people.
It's a network. It's a network.
I was going to say 5.
Right, well, I know what you mean. But he defines this friendly network as containing the people you wouldn't feel embarrassed to join at the bar in the transit lounge of Hong Kong Airport at 3 a.m.
Oh, no, thousands of them.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been embarrassed to join anyone at a bar in my life.
Yeah. It's a peculiar definition.
That is, yeah.
It's an odd one. But on the other hand,
there's something about this particular transit lounge.
I don't know. But 150 does turn out to be quite a special number amongst peoples and groups. It's the average size of traditional hunter-gatherer communities, small religious groups such as the Amish, and the average English village size at the time of the Doomsday Book. It also occurs all over the modern world. It's the number of Christmas cards the average person sends, apparently. 130? 150. The size of a company in all modern armies is 150, as opposed to a battalion or a platoon. And it's also close to the average number of friends people have on Facebook, which is 130 odd. So it is strangely... It seems to be the number beyond which it's too many, and any less than that is a closer friend. But it's also... When we say friend, we mean someone, as you say...
We
someone
like.
who'll bury a body for you. Yeah. Facebook. Are you all on Facebook? No?
I don't,
You're not?
I don't
You are?
really go on the computer.
I read a prediction the other day that said that at the current rate, in 10 years' time, 1 in 3 marriages in America will be people who met online. It's already 1 in 8. It's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, God.
Is that bad?
Well, you just fill out a lot of forms, don't you? Here's everything I like.
Oh, no,
Meet
they
someone
don't necessarily meet on dating sites. Well,
Oh.
some of them will be, I agree, but...
How else do you meet if you're not on a dating site, though?
Join a group.
You join a group.
Yeah.
Yeah, join a
Chat.
Facebook group with like-minded people.
Oh, right.
They send you witty remarks.
And which are the most
eventually, you send them a photograph of your genitals.
Yes. You know... Whoa. Well, Alan, that's the most popular so far, the genitals.
The genitals.
Of the gentlemen.
So it's just like a normal courtship then, but
Yeah,
done digitally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel quite bad, you know, for the Amish in this situation because, you know, they're not going to meet people on Facebook, are they? Unless we create an Amish Facebook where you just write everything you know about yourself on a sheet of paper and put it in a barrel in the middle of the village. People can just dip in and out of, you know.
It's true, because they don't have electricity.
Raise the barn today, lol.
In the Middle Ages, what shape did people think the world was?
Flat.
I know we all think they did, but there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever. They all thought it was round. They all wrote about it as round. The Greeks knew that it was round.
Round and flat?
No, they thought it was a sphere. Terry Jones, the Python, who is something of a medievalist, as you may know, he blames Washington Irving, the American writer, for one of those being who started this lie, as he puts it. The Greeks knew it was round, he says. Chaucer knew it was round. Roger Bacon wrote about the curvature of the Earth in the 13th century. So, apparently...
Well, I think the majority of people didn't really care.
No, but they started.
As indeed we don't now actually care that it's round. If it was square, it wouldn't bother me. I'd rush to the edge. In fact, I'd want to go right to the corner.
You'd sit on the corner.
How do we know it's round?
Yeah, huh?
Round the world tickets.
One is photographing. Photographing it was a very big help. We took a photograph and we saw that it was
yes,
round.
but then you could say that about anything, about people going to the moon, and we know they didn't.
If it weren't round, all the flights of aeroplanes, if it weren't round, we just nothing that we...
How do we know they just don't fly, just circle round for a bit and let you think that you're going miles and miles and miles and just come down, like, you know, a couple of hours away, and they've set Russia up a lot nearer than it is?
It's a really, 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 really long oblong shape.
On a track, like an electric bike, and they just move it.
Whizzing
the
around.
Plane goes up, the plane doesn't move. They move the country in front of them.
Are all the stars round?
I can't answer that. I think probably most...
But yet you know what people thought 500 years ago.
Can I read books? Yes. Have I visited every star in the universe? No. Is that something that you find difficult to understand? You set me off. You've set Sir off again.
Don't you think that this series has reached the point, with a dedicated following who trust us, that this would be the point where you could say just one thing in a show? You could say, just like this, the world isn't round. It's been proven. Most people will now believe it who watch this show.
Well, I can say with some confidence, ladies and gentlemen, the world is not round. It is an oblate spheroid.
No, that's not what I meant.
No, I'm sorry. I was being literalist.
Pine cone. If you'd said the world is shaped like a pine cone. Just to see how many letters we get.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it? Get some at last, anyway. Apart from the... well, you know who you are, don't you? And I tried it, and it was a disaster. Yes, no, since the 4th century BC, almost no one in the history of the world has believed that the Earth is flat. It's a common misconception, and indeed the song lyric, they all laughed at Christopher Columbus when he said the world was round, but he didn't think that the world was round. He thought it was actually pear-shaped. I've got my hands on the American nuclear trigger. Without putting yourselves to too much effort, see if you can tell me what the code is.
Secret trigger code.
The secret trigger code given to every American president between the years of 1960 and 1977.
I think that if you've got to remember it under pressure,
Yes.
and it would be a pressure situation,
Surely.
beginning the end of the world, it's got to be something quite simple.
It's 00000000. That literally was the code. 4 zeros twice, 8 zeros.
8 zeros.
8 zeros. That was the password.
Is that because you're just about... It's the end of the world, and you're going to go, oh, 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 oh.
Did the president, when he's testing this, did he do the chip and pin, you know, that little dance you do when is the shopkeeper just looking at you and you kind of go...
Or pretend to press.
Well, you do a book, because I just do a cover.
No, because you not notice polite shopkeepers now do this, which is what they call the penny chews. We just go like that and they do
I think it's pretend to do other numbers than the ones they're doing. Yeah.
So you're there with the lovely Debbie McGee going...
do your number, but while you're doing your number, you say a different number slightly under your breath, so you look like a bit of an idiot.
Well, that's like you're all rubbing your tummy and patting your head.
Like
Yes, that is clever.
His number's 457.
But because the people I always most hated at school were those who, when they were writing in a test, did that.
Yeah.
As if one cared about what
That's
dribble they wrote.
because you're not an idiot.
Oh, no. It's just such a creepy way of behaving. So I always just do like that, grandly make sure that my number is...
I published mine in The Sun once.
It
went quite badly wrong.
That was very funny.
I couldn't understand it because they were complaining that everybody's bank details had been left on a train by a civil servant or somebody, and I thought, well, it doesn't make any difference because all they can do is make a deposit. So I published my number, and there you go, there's my bank account number. What are you going to do with that? And the Diabetic Society helped themselves to 500 quid.
Well, what do you call an Irishman with no nipples? That's Richard Harris, of course.
In A Man Called Horse.
A Man Called Horse.
It's a great movie, isn't it?
Things.
It seemed extreme when I first saw that, but now there's guys in Camden Town that have that done.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be an Edinburgh show now, wouldn't it? Yeah, part of the festival.
He deserved 10 times worse than that for writing MacArthur Park.
Oh, yes. Cake left out in the rain.
Someone left the cake in the rain. Who cares?
My nan left the cake out in the rain. It would have absorbed all the rain. She made a very dry cake.
He didn't actually write, to be fair, to Richard Harris. It was written by Judy Webb, but he did sing it. And he's guilty of that. But this question isn't about Richard Harris. This is about Irishmen with no nipples. It seems bizarre, but there is a real historical point of interest here. What could an Irishman never be if he had no nipples?
Symmetric.
We're going back to the past. Symmetric. We're going back into the past in Ireland. It's a very peculiar thing, but part of your way of showing loyalty to your sovereign, if you were an Irish subject in the ancient days of the Irish kings, was you had to suck their nipples. Right? So, and you may say, well, OK, but what kind of person doesn't have nipples? There would be fights, contests, and people would apply, as it were, to be King of Ireland. And if they were found not suitable, they would have their nipples cut off, which meant they could never be King of Ireland.
Sorry, they did it like Britain's Got Talent.
Basically, yes.
This is how Britain's Got Talent should just tweak it so it's the same.
It would be quite something. But there was Old Crochan Man, which was one of the peat bog discoveries, and he was so well preserved that when he was discovered, it wasn't archaeologists or museums or anthropologists who got in touch with it, it was the police. But in fact, it was from between 300-odd to 100-odd BC that this person had died.
So the chances of getting...
well preserved.
You would describe that as a cold case.
No, yeah, you would.
The chances of getting a conviction...
But he was so well preserved, people said, oh, my God, you know, here's this recently killed body. But he was found with nipples pinched and cut off. So he appears to have been someone who basically was deprived ritually of his attribute of kingship before being killed. So there you are. That seems to be the case. But there are extra points if you can tell me the national colour of Ireland.
Well, this feels like a trap.
It does indeed. That's the flag, but that's not necessarily an indication of what the national colour is.
Blue. National colour.
Blue is the right answer.
Get in.
Very good. Well done. Yeah. The fact is, of course, it's changed. Now everybody thinks it's green, and green is where one paints themselves green in Chicago and New York for St. Patrick's Day. But St. Patrick's colour was blue, and it was known as St. Patrick's blue. The coat of arms of Ireland, you may see, is a shield of a harp against a ground of St. Patrick's blue. And the Irish Guards are distinct because of the blue in their bearskins. So blue was always really the colour of Ireland until really... It was in 1798 when they had one of their many rebellions, and green then became a symbol of Irish nationalism and sort of took over from blue. Sucking a king's nipples was a gesture of submission in ancient Ireland, so if you lost yours, you couldn't be king. Where would you put your ladder if you wanted to get into space?
On top of the spaceship, on a rack. A red flag hanging off of it so some other spaceships don't follow you too closely.
It's a conceptual question. How about this? Up against a wall of silence.
You should have railings built round you, and people will come and worship you as a kind of modern Buddha. You've got the look, I have to say.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a good look.
Thank you very much.
Buddha look.
Rural Buddhas.
Yeah.
So there, right? Wisdom and cheap cider.
You're saying where you put the ladder, you'd assume, I suppose, the obvious answer is you'd put it on the highest point, like Everest.
Yes, that wouldn't...
It'd be a bit bumpy, wouldn't it? You couldn't get a good foothold on it.
It's sometimes called a space ladder. It's more commonly called a space elevator. It is a genuine idea that has been worked on, and many people believe would have saved the space program an enormous amount of money in various ways, was to build a huge elevator that goes from Earth and is counterweighted at the other end and spin round incredibly fast. But it would be an equivalent of geostationary orbit at the end of it, and you would have elevators on it that would go up and down.
With a phone that didn't work in it. I'm stuck on the... I'm about 87,000 miles.
There's some
right
kind of
beyond Venus.
There's some kind of a door in the roof. Maybe we could...
It was Arthur C. Clarke who particularly believed in this thing, but NASA spent a lot of money on it. But the important point is you would have to do it on the equator, where the Earth goes at its fastest. Because it's the bit, you know, like the end of a record goes faster than the middle, obviously.
What about a series of trampolines? Like you have a huge trampoline, and then higher up is another one about half a mile up, and then another one. So it's like a staircase of trampolines going up into space, and then there's a big bouncy castle at the top. And a bloke charging you £1, and you've got to take your shoes off. I'd tell you the best way to get into space, I would tell you, I've just realised it, and it's brilliant. It's just brilliant. I'm going to be so rich. Bubble. A bubble. Get in a bubble, just float up there.
One day.
I mean a big bubble. I'm not talking about those bubbles you see in the... That's not a bubble. Stupid little one. You call that a bubble, mate? You want to come and see my bubble. No, a big bubble, you get in the bubble and off you go.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Who wants in? Me. This is like the Dragon's Den for cranky ideas.
How about this? You could just imagine.
Oh, Bill. Huh? Bill, that's so beautiful.
It's the wisdom of the rural Buddha.
The Dalai Farmer.
Very good.
Excellent.
I've been struggling with that for about 5 minutes. Got to be something of this.
Oh, your synapses are firing beautifully. Use your synapses to fire people into space.
Who is the coolest, grooviest, hippest cat on the show tonight?
David Tennant, I would have thought.
Yeah.
I'm going for Bell.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. What do we know about these words?
They're jazz words.
Many of them are jazz words. And how old are they?
Since the 20s, 30s?
Early...
40s?
No, earlier. Stone Age.
Let's take the word cool. When did it first mean, like, fashionable, do you think?
60s beatnik poet era.
Hitler.
Oddly enough, it was the year Hitler came to power, 1933, but I don't think that's quite relevant.
These new uniforms are cool.
Bizarrely.
So this is Christmas.
I'm Jerry's in Nazi Party. They're cool, Daddy-o.
Cool, Daddy-o.
Bizarrely, it was 1933.
And besides, I have no choice.
Yeah.
I burned out a Reichstag. Cool. Jazz Nazis, eh?
It was the West Coast School of... But it was the West Coast...
Jazz Nazis are used both ways.
It was the West Coast School of Relaxed Jazz led by Miles Davies. And his album, The Birth of the Cool, was 1957, which, oddly enough, is the year I was born.
How extraordinary.
So maybe I am cool.
Cool.
I love that if you saying all that as a chat-up line in a nightclub. Yeah. Do you know who the coolest person in the room is tonight? No, let me explain. 1933. Cut to 2 hours later,
so cool.
and that, madam, is why I am cool. Can I get to another move?
Where's she gone?
Don't go.